Hey, welcome back, everybody, to The Movie Date with Rob and Matt. It's a podcast for people who love talking about movies but don't want to be too smug about it. And I'm Matt.
They don't like it. They love it. I'm Rob.
Yeah, we love talking about. We love talking about movies.
It's not a passive thing for us. We have to.
Like it. Yeah, we love
We're
it.
addicted to it. We don't want to do it. We have to do it, and it's ruining our lives.
I wish that was the only thing that was ruining my life.
Oh no.
Whatever.
Do we need to have start our long talked about side project? Matt and Rob talk through their issues.
No,
a podcast
God,
for people
who wants
want to.
that?
A podcast for people who want to talk about issues but don't want to be smug. I don't know.
Yo, we'd have to be smug about it.
I don't know what the tagline.
I don't even know what device you're building right there.
This is a selfie stick, but I never used it. My mom always buys me a stocking full of like useless trinkets in addition to whatever Christmas presents she buys me or whatever. Thanks, Mom, if you listen to this. I love you. I cherish.
Is that a nipper you have over there? Yeah. Oh no, that's some
like
tweezers.
Like pliers or tweezers.
So we're back.
Baby, we're back, baby.
We're back, baby. We got movies to talk about. We got movie news to talk about. It should start.
If anything, it would be strange if we were back, but we didn't have any movies.
We didn't have anything movies to talk about.
We would just sit here in silence like this.
It's an experimental piece.
Yeah.
Slowly, like every now and then, somebody will hear like a drone just kind of pass by, like a drone, and be like, "What was that?" And it's like, that is whatever you want to make it. We're a David Lynchy podcast now.
Yeah. I guess we'll get to David Lynch at the end.
Sort of, kind of.
Movie news,
yeah.
Anyway.
Because we're going to talk about another day. We're going to talk about David Lowery's The Green Knight.
The Green Knigget.
The Green Garwin and the Green Knight.
Yeah.
Or as Sean Harris calls him, Garwin.
Garwin.
Yeah. Garfield and the Green Knight.
Yeah.
Oh, I hate Green Knights.
Yep. David Lowery, director of many things that I like, including Ain't Them Body Saints, A Ghost Story, Pete's Dragon, underappreciated Disney remake, I think. It's kind of sad, though. I can see why someone will watch it and be like, I was expecting fun. And
he did that, The Man and the Gun, which I never saw.
Yeah, I never saw that either, but I heard it was good.
I've seen the book is based on. So. Yeah. But we'll get to that. That's been a very interesting. Yeah. I've seen a lot of takes on that movie.
We have a constitution of movie news.
Yeah, a filibuster of movie news.
I made Matt write down the list so that we could go through it in order.
So let's get started. At this point, you don't know I know what we're ending with, but you don't know where we're starting. So I'm just gonna throw something out.
Jesus, sorry. I'm gonna have to edit all these coughs out. I apologize if you hear me coughing this episode. I have a frog in my throat.
So occasionally, adjacently, we have talked a lot about anime.
Yeah.
We did an episode for Demon Slayer. We did some stuff for the new Gundam movie.
I would call it the movie and television date with Rob and Matt.
Yeah, because we've also
roll off the tongue quite as easy.
Right. We take into account nerd culture.
Yeah. We've talked video games, but that's not in the title either. So we've talked
comic books, obviously.
Books and comic
books. Rob and Matt's media podcast.
Yeah.
Dude, that sounds like a textbook you have to buy that you want to rent because it's going to be way cheaper than the $250 textbook. As of just about like half an hour ago, Funimation, owned by Sony, bought out Crunchyroll for about $1.17 billion. Yeah.
That's a lot of money.
That's a lot of money to show that.
I think that's
anime sales worldwide via streaming is highly lucrative.
I wanted to say
manga sales are highly lucrative.
I wanted to say it was more than like the Disney Fox deal or something.
I don't recall the numbers of that, but that's pretty big. I mean, also like they make a point of saying Funimation has been owned by Sony for the longest time, and then Crunchyroll kind of started up independently. Like before it was a kind of a free streaming site, kind of like one of these pirate streaming sites you see now. Yeah. But then they kind of went legit. You can still watch a lot of free stuff on there as you can with Funimation. You just have to watch it with ads and lower quality. But now they are one entity.
My hope for this is that totally selfishly, is that now all of my favorite anime will be on there, and I don't have to like Naruto Shippuden or whatever is on like Hulu, but you only get the dub up to like season 4 or 5.
Yeah, I think.
And then the rest of it's all sub. Like my hope is that they'll like organize and get everything together. So if you want to watch the dub of this or the sub of that, you don't have to go searching for it, which is very hard if you're like trying to go through Netflix Netflix, or you're trying to get like One Punch Man is on Netflix, and the trailer is in English, but when you click on it, it's all Japanese.
It goes into Japanese
or whatever. And there's a couple things that are the other way as well.
Well, it's like we were talking about with Gundam. It looks like all of that's going to go onto Netflix now.
Yeah,
and the same with because they just dropped the trailer for Part 6 of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure.
Gundam is Sunrise. Gundam isn't Funimation.
It's not. Yeah, it's not Funimation. It's Sunrise. But Crunchyroll puts out some things via those studios. Because Studio Dean, I think, puts out JoJo's. Right now, Warner Brothers puts out JoJo's. So they're co-opted with Warner Brothers because the trailer was co-opted with Warner Brothers for Part 6, and that's going to be big.
Good for y'all, Warner Brothers.
But Netflix is going to get exclusive rights for that.
Nice.
So that's going to be big. We'll see how that flushes out. A lot of people obviously are really, have some pretty hot feelings about
you said,
about monopolies and things.
One of the things you said was like, hey, yay for monopolies or whatever.
That's what someone on Twitter said. I went immediately to Twitter where I saw it, and I was like, all right, let's see what the takes are. And it's kind of broken up between those. You want to talk about a real fickle group are the anime connoisseurs, most of whom just
it is
illegally download their streams anyway.
All the conversations will divulge down to one of like 4 things, which is Goku would beat them in a fight. Naruto.
I wish it was just that.
Naruto is the best anime in the world, or Naruto is the worst anime because it's,
Cowboy Bebop is overrated.
And somehow it's 99% filler, even though I'm pretty sure Naruto is like maybe 30% filler or something. But like,
K-on's the best thing that's ever happened.
Trigun is overrated, is one that I've heard. It's one that all the cool kids like, but it's actually there's the guy with the beret and his hot take or whatever.
It's saying that Cowboy Bebop is overrated is the real hot take because it's like, come on, that's what everyone loves that, and it's like, well, that's why I don't like it. I like
Ringo. He's my favorite.
I like Samurai Maid Girls, and it's like, yeah, of course you do.
Yeah, of course you do. You fucking lunatic.
You madman. So we'll see how that divvies out. It's a big money. I mean, it's big money.
And when you said that, I brought up that, like, yes, it is technically a monopoly. There are still other anime studios and stuff out there.
Right.
They don't have
some
everything,
of those anime studios
but
put us out. Like I said, Netflix
like,
is really coming out as a competitor as well.
I mean, not to mention, we'll get to that with The Witcher in a second, is they're having a Witcher anime prequel, which is really dope.
Yeah, but, stuff like Castlevania is showing to be very popular and things like that.
And My Hero Academia is Netflix as well.
No, it's not.
They're not? Or am I thinking of, what am I thinking
of? It's Hulu.
Am I thinking of Sword Art Online?
No.
Is that not? One of them is Netflix. Which one is it?
Well, no, I think
Seven Deadly Sins.
Seven Deadly Sins is Netflix. I think SOA is Netflix, but I don't know because I don't watch SOA. So I'm out of my league with that. But I do know MHA, My Hero Academia, great show, is on Hulu.
Yeah, that's right.
That's a Hulu distribution. But so is Crunchyroll. It's a Crunchyroll distribution.
But it's
as well.
looking like Funimation is becoming like the Disney of anime. But here's the thing. Every time Disney touches something, and this is just like a generalization, this is not always the fast and true thing, but I do kind of believe this. Whenever Disney touches something, it becomes a little more toothless, family-friendly, sort of PG-13ified, and there's, like you said, there's no sex scenes. It's good old-fashioned American kissing, is what you said.
If that.
And I think anime is too broad to ever have something like that happen. I think Funimation is like, Funimation would be stupid if like, oh, we're going to get rid of all the only do kids anime.
Yeah, you can't do that because then you kill most of your audience.
Yeah,
like,
and also most animes are made off of the mangas that they come from.
Yeah, like you can't really. It would be a very silly thing to do if they went in and just like, yeah, we're going to have all the shonen stuff. We got because Netflix also has Demon Slayer.
Yeah.
But if they're like, we're just going to hype up that we got One Piece. We're going to hype up that we got Naruto. We're going to hype up that we've got Jujutsu Kaisen or any of like the really popular new stuff. But also we're going to, cap out any seinen series or popular like adult series or anything.
Half of your audience would just go away immediately.
Yeah. Or they'll go pirate, they'll yar, it's like, there's enough.
Imagine like you're going to like you're reading like Berserk or something that's very adult, and then you go to the anime and it's just like been Disney-fied. You would be so mad.
It's like one of my favorite things. It's old now, but it was the G-rated trailer for 300. Where they recut it to be the 1,000 nations of the Persian army, our bees. We'll blot out the sun. Then we will hug in the shade. And they like put like My Little Pony characters running around and like toothbrushes and things like brush your teeth. It's still one of the funniest things I've ever seen, and it came out when I was in high school.
That's hilarious.
It's so poorly put together. It was some early YouTube stuff.
I'll have to check
It would
it
be
out.
that, or like the four kids joke,
Yeah.
like Neon Genesis Evangelion opening where it's a bad rap song.
Yeah.
Either way, I don't think that's going to happen. I think they know their audience well enough to be like, they're not going to get rid of like Gogol 13 or anything like that, you know.
But that's a thing that has happened.
It is a thing that has happened, but I think the Disneyfying thing, I think it's like with anime, it's so specifically it's a different cultural intake because there are things that
Like Funimation doesn't have a brand like Disney. Disney is a brand, and the brand is we're family friendly.
if anything, Crunchyroll has more of a brand than anything because it came independently. It was like made by the fans for the fans. And Funimation, you know, cut their teeth in, you know, VHS and DVD sales.
Yeah.
Crunchyroll was the first one to really hit it onto the citation needed. First one to hit it big online.
If you want the uncut version, you have to buy the VHS or whatever.
Right.
A lot of times. So if anything,
Get it from Sam Goodies. Wait. Oh, I'm talking about long dead things now. Anyway, so that just happened. Very interesting. Moving on.
a slew of movie trailers.
One is, since we'll go. Do you want to go ahead and talk about The Witcher?
Yeah,
Since we were just
I'd
talking about
like
TV
to.
shows, let's talk about The Witcher.
I really liked The Witcher for the most part.
It's the new season. That's next season of The Witcher, long anticipated.
And it's getting an anime prequel that follows Geralt's master and teacher named Vesemir, who is played by Theo James from Castlevania, who plays Hector.
Yep.
And all I could think of was like, this looks very much like Castlevania. And
Sure
I'm pretty
does.
sure some of the same supervisors or whatever are on it.
Wouldn't be
But that looks cool. But we're talking about Witcher Season 2,
Yeah.
Part 2, or whatever. And my big critique of Season 1 of The Witcher was the timeline of the show is the narrative is all fucked and it's really
it
hard to
does
keep
go-
track.
It does
And-
go everywhere a lot of the time.
And I the first thing I thought was like, we see another Witcher for a second in the show before he's killed by the Striga or whatever.
The Strega, yeah.
And
One of
then
my favorite episodes.
The first thing that I was like is like, man, it'd be really cool to like see we need more Witchers. I even said like Jason Momoa should be cast as another Witcher, and it'd be great.
Oh, that'd be great if it was like what they do in the Bourne movies. They just get different like decently big name actors to play other agents.
Yeah.
To go and just
Yeah,
be
like Carl Urban and Clive Owen are in the Bourne movies as that's a good idea.
I wasn't
Get Ed Skrein as one. He'd be a good Witcher.
Ed Skrein would be a good Witcher. Yeah. I
He
can see
plays a
that.
cyborg bounty hunter in Battle Angel Alita. He's pretty cool.
Oh, sick.
Yeah, he's like
I-
like all shiny steel except for like this part.
This part of his
face.
head.
It's pretty cool.
I mostly just remember Ed Skrein from Deadpool.
Yeah, me too. As does everyone else in that one Hitman movie or whatever. And like one of the first things we see in this new trailer is Geralt is finally with Cirilla, and he's taking her back to Kaer Morhen, which is where he was trained to become a Witcher. And they walk in, and you see like 6 Witchers looking slovenly around the table.
they
And
all-
at first, I didn't know they were Witchers. At first, I was like, they're just dudes. or
There's
whatever.
guards.
And then when you get in there, you see their necklaces, and you see one of their close up of one of their eyes. And I was like, oh, they're. And then Geralt hugs them. I was like, oh, these are other Witchers.
Right.
This is great.
We're hanging out with Witchers now.
Yeah.
And it does seem like the focus of this, though I said that this could be deceptive in the editing.
Yeah, it could all be from just one episode.
One episode.
And then the next 3 episodes are them in the woods, hungry or whatever.
because it looks like, and I think this would really help keep that timeline thing steady, is if we had one single appointed area of like operation, and that's what this seems to be. Because I don't know much about the other world of The Witcher. I've not played the games, not read the books. I've seen the game.
I'm
I've
loosely
seen the
familiar.
books. But it would be nice if they kind of had these characters be able to grow from this one comfortable spot until it's not comfortable anymore because the forces at B are coming down upon this princess.
Well, I'm
and
just
all
glad we're
that.
getting rid of the time jumping narrative because we can actually start to sit with these characters and grow with them finally.
Right.
As opposed to being told all their history
Exploits.
in a backstory that we don't know is a backstory till like halfway through it.
Because the biggest backstory we got out of the first one was we saw the person Yennefer became. We saw Yennefer's beginning and eventually like her, like, I guess, sort of defeat or just kind of like how they cut things off from her right there, because we get a hint of that in this new trailer that she's gonna come back.
And a lot of the stuff with Geralt ends up like there's a part where he meets Filavandrel, the king of the elves or whatever, and you think that that's happening concurrently, and then it's talked about in another. It's one of my favorite episodes. It's not my favorite episode really, but it's one of my favorite moments with Geralt because he's just roasting people.
Is it at the dance or
where there's the guys claiming to have killed a basilisk or whatever? And he goes, none of these pieces of shit have killed a basilisk.
Yeah, I killed a basilisk.
And he was like why did? And there's that song where the elf, like the song that Jaskier makes about him, which is toss a coin to your witcher, and it mentions like the Filavandrel let him go. Essentially, is like a line in the song. It's more poetic than I just put it or whatever.
Right.
He
give it up for our boy.
He talks about like how like when you shit yourself when you die in battle usually, and he goes like that's all I can wish for you, my lords. Like at your final end, and he goes a shitless death, and then he drinks his and like but so if the thing with Filavandrel happened so long ago, that means this is years later,
right?
Or whatever,
and
you don't know that
gets
till...
really tough because he doesn't age clearly.
Yeah.
But the two big focal point characters, I think, to show you the passing of time were the king and queen.
Yeah.
From their deaths to when you first meet them and back and forth, because that kind of threw me off from the beginning. And of course, Cirilla growing up into a young woman in the process of that as well.
In season 2,
because Geralt's immortal, sorta, or he's ageless. It's just. There he is.
Yeah.
When are you, sir?
Season 2, we don't have this problem. At least I don't think we will.
Unless, like I said, we're gonna hop around.
I want to see Witchers teaming up, killing stuff. That's my bar. It's a medium-sized bar. It's not too high to get above. Like any extra stuff past that is just like icing on the cake for me.
I want some more monster hunting. I want some more interesting monsters. That's what I like about this world. Is it has some really good takes on classic fantasy creatures. Yeah. That's why the Strega episode's one of my favorites, because it's a good old. We're bringing a monster hunter in town.
Well, like Eastern European like folklore is filled with like those monsters.
Yeah.
So like even like that's where like werewolves and vampires. That's where that all comes from. Is mostly like Eastern European.
Some of your Baba Yagas and
Krampus probably.
Krampus running around.
Yeah.
I like their takes on
trolls. Sure, trolls or whatever. But I would definitely like to see some more cool monsters. Even not even say like interesting monsters, but like I'd love to see like him hunt a werewolf.
There was something in the trailer that was like flying around on like it looked like a witch, like a stereotypical witch flying around. It kind of gave me Baba Yaga vibes, except Baba Yaga runs around in a mortar and pestle.
He does.
She does.
She does?
Yes.
On a mortar and like what do you mean around in a like it's
like
a chariot that's shaped like a mortar and pestle?
No, it's like she gets inside a mortar and like flies through the air on a mortar and pestle.
That is the weirdest thing I've ever heard.
Yeah, well, she lives in a chicken house. Like, you know about her chicken-legged house, right?
No.
Oh, man. Baba Yaga's great.
That's just like the boogeyman, right? Or the boogie woman?
She's kind of the the Russian boogeyman, the Russian-Ukrainian boogeyman. She steals kids, Like, I feel like there's been enough Baba Yaga that sort of has, like, itched down into, like... Hans Christian Andersen material or like the Brothers Grimm, but also is a really fun character in the Hellboy comics as well, where she shows up in that as one of the primary antagonists.
I want more monsters. I agree with you. More cool monsters. And I really liked the trailer for the most part. The really big thing for me is going to be like, can we maintain a quality going through? Because the first episode we end it with that awesome fight at Blaviken, and then the rest of the fights just kind of slowly peter down. And you get a little uptick at the end, but like I want more of those fights consistently, and then I'll be happy. Because I don't love this show the way some people do. I think it's just like you said, it would be a great, like if it wasn't for some of the gore, it would be like an ABC style show. Like,
did I say that? I don't know if I said that.
You said like or like on the UPN, or like this week with The Witcher.
Yeah,
like it would be like our version today of like a modern Xena warrior
of like Hercules or something like that,
but better.
I did say that, but better, because we don't do that anymore. Fantasy shows and things like that don't appear on primetime TV much anymore.
Yeah,
unless they're HBO.
That's all I want from the show.
I just like it. I like that character. I
want more him shit talking Jaskier, and I want some more roasts. I want
more Jaskier. Everyone likes that guy.
Are we gonna get a new song?
Oh yeah, we got to, because that took off. They're like, all right, get to the making of the making of the folk songs.
Find more songs.
Release that on not iTunes. That feels like feels antiquated.
Spotify, I guess.
Yeah, put it on your toss a coin to your Spotify membership.
You'll get 1 penny for every 1,000 plays or whatever. It's a shit show out there.
Great. So there's that. There's that. We got a couple of movie trailers, both by the master Ridley Scott.
Yes.
One I feel like Rob really wants to talk about, and then we'll briefly touch on the other. Let's go ahead and talk about The Last Duel.
Well, one of them is about swords and armor and
the other is about fashion. And
which one do you think I wanted?
Yeah, we want to talk about the one that recalls
the manly one.
Recalls Children of Heaven, not Children of Heaven, Kingdom of Heaven.
Yeah, it does kind of, doesn't it?
Well, and also The Last Duel recalls to me The Duelists, except those are with pistols and things like that.
Or is it the Shootist that you're thinking of?
I think Ridley Scott's movie was The Duelists, where it's like Europe, and it's with they're both like building up to a duel, and they're both with musket guns and everything. It kind of recalls like Barry Lyndon a little bit.
I know what you're talking about. I just can't remember what it is.
I'll look it up. You take it away from here about the
I mean,
Last
all I
Duel.
can say is at first, like when I heard about this movie, I was like, this is gonna be stupid. And I was like, Matt Damon and Ben Affleck in like a period piece, and I was like, I don't believe it's gonna be.
Oh,
They're two American-y actors that I don't know if they could do it. And then I watched this trailer and I was like, I take it all back. They're both pretty great in this.
quick little side note.
Yeah.
The Duelists was Ridley Scott's directorial debut.
Oh, right
and it's based on a Joseph Conrad short story and set in the 1800s about hussars. So it had Harvey Keitel and a couple other folks in it. So we get from The Duelists to The Last Duel. I don't think it's not going to be his last movie.
He'll make movies until right
because we got
before he
another
dies.
one coming up right after this one. So yeah, we get the old View Askew boys, Matt Damon and Ben Affleck.
They're pretty good. Like I really thought that it was gonna be like real cringe. Like there's like a part like Ben Affleck looks like a Pompey prince, but I was like, it's Ben Affleck. I know his face. And then he goes, "There's a serious charge brought against you," and I was like, "Oh, that's pretty good." He's not hamming it up the way I thought he would be. And Matt Damon looks kind of unrecognizable. Yeah, he has like scars on his face. They work hard to make him look like a Viking.
And I also was just like, are we sure that's not Jesse Plemons?
No,
because as Matt Damon gets wider, he starts looking more like Jesse Plemons.
Well, I think as Jesse Plemons gets wider, he looks more like Matt Damon.
That's true. Well, the two cannot share the same space. I'm sure.
One day, one day they're gonna keep growing and they will encompass all the universe, and it will be one giant
the Plemons Damon the Plemons Damon counterpoint
singularity or whatever. I don't know.
And also
Adam Driver is also in it.
Yes, a very villainous Adam Driver who kind of his hair and everything about him.
He looks like Inigo Montoya.
He actually looks a lot like Alan Rickman in Prince of Thieves.
Yeah, a little bit.
He's got the goatee, he's got the hair, he's kicking open doors.
Yeah.
Well, gouge your eyes out with a spoon.
Yeah. But and apparently did he have sex with this lady or sexually assault her?
I think it's sexual assault.
Or did he not?
Right.
And then Matt Damon asks the king
also,
for
we
a
did
duel.
say this lady. It is.
Yeah, what's this lady's name?
Since she's probably kind of the main character. Was it Elizabeth Vikander?
You mean Alicia Vikander? Or is there another Vikander?
Oh, no, it's Jodie Comer. The absolutely amazing Jodie Comer from Killing Eve.
Right on.
Shame on me. She's great. If you haven't seen Killing Eve.
I have not.
Dude, it's awesome. Killing Eve's really fun.
Cool.
As we talked about previously, talking about Promising Young Woman.
Yeah.
Was directed by the same person who directed the second season and was one of the big creators for Killing Eve.
Right on.
So that tone, very similar. Jodie Comer is a very campy, over the top, dangerous assassin, and she puts in like the role of a lifetime in that role. She's great. So good for Jodie Comer.
She plays the
she
wife
plays
in this.
yes in this. This is based on a true story.
Yeah, I saw that. I don't want to know what it is. I don't want to know what it's about. Or you can tell me like who the people are or whatever. But like, I don't want to know anything about it because I don't know how it ends.
It is based on The Last Duel, the true story of trial by combat in medieval France by Eric Jaeger. So it takes an adaptation of Jaeger's book. So this has been the adaptation was first announced in 2015. So this has been something Scott's wanted to do for a minute.
Right on.
It is in 14th century France.
It's 1300s
and
post Crusades.
It is this is the story of the last legally sanctioned duel in France's history.
Right on.
So it's a trial by combat situation, and
Adam Driver's character looks like a man that couldn't take a punch. So like I feel like, but I feel like
I think Adam Driver always kind of looks scrappy. Like if you got him down, he would just start hulking out and like
as Adam Driver, yes, but not as this
guy. Yeah, he does seem like
and Matt Damon looks like a veteran of 1,000 battles. Like,
yeah, Damon does. Like you said, he looks very like he could walk off the set of Vikings.
So like, I'm curious. Like, is that all a misdirect? Does Matt Damon lose this duel and that's why it's famous? If you know, don't tell me.
I don't know. These are all names.
All I know is that like when we actually, I imagine the whole movie is going to be like a build up to the actual event. It's probably going to be told in retrospect or whatever.
You think it's going to be something where the trial, the accusations, this woman,
and then you go
Jodie
back
Comer's
and you
character,
watch all the events that lead up to it,
right? Because the threat is if she's not being honest, she will be burned at the stake for lying and being a woman who lies in the 1300s.
Well, if the accusation is that he like sexually assaulted her,
right?
Why is that her fault?
It is.
Of course, he would lie about it.
It is interesting taking that in because it's like, well, this is kind of about like medieval Me Too.
Yeah. Well, I guess it's trial by combat. So if they fight and Matt Damon loses, technically Adam Driver didn't do anything or whatever. So he's a liar.
God wills it. God wills it because they even say let God decide and let God decide which one kills the other person with the sword.
Yeah. I will say the fight looks pretty good.
The costumes look great.
Yeah.
The armor looks great. I have a feeling this is going to be something that's like Ridley Scott, who of course is no stranger to putting armor on people, is like probably meticulously down to the level like what are we wearing?
He's done 4 of these movies. He's done Gladiator, did Kingdom of Heaven. He did Legend with Tom Cruise back in the day, and then he did this.
Which that takes place in a different world.
I know, but it's fantasy / epic based or whatever.
I feel like he's got another one in there, and we're just not thinking of it.
Maybe it's entirely possible. I actually love Ridley Scott's epics a lot more than I like a lot of his other movies. I think he's keeping it alive. He's the only person that makes me want to watch.
He seems to. I mean,
these
absolutely
epics or
love
whatever.
Right.
I mean, I guess we're going to talk about an epic here shortly, but let's move on to the next one.
So very briefly,
looks good. I'm going to see it. Coming out soon.
The Last Duel?
Yeah.
That'll be interesting. I'm kind of looking at whatever else he was involved with. He didn't do that Exodus movie, did he?
Yes, he did. Oh yeah.
He did do Exodus,
famously
God
mediocre.
Robin Hood. He did the Robin Hood. Speaking of Robin Hood,
that's all right. I don't hate that movie.
There's a lot of people who don't like that movie.
Why? Really?
He did 1492 Conquest for Peace.
I remember that. That's not an epic though. Doesn't count.
But these are other things where he's put armor on people.
Yeah.
So he's a nerd for this stuff. The other thing
people don't like Robin Hood. What's the? Is it just like critics didn't like it or whatever?
Yeah. Well, and also I think a lot of people think it's really boring. Like, and also it went through such a troubled history because originally it was going to be called Nottingham, and it was going to be about the sheriff of Nottingham.
Ooh.
And then like everything about it kind of fell apart, and they got Russell Crowe, and they're like, well, Russell Crowe can't play the bad guy, so he has to be Robin Hood. And they're just like, okay, fine. And so that I think that kind of
it's definitely like the least of his great epics. Kingdom of Heaven, I think, is still his crowning achievement. I know some people say like, no, it's Gladiator. It's not. It's Kingdom of Heaven.
That's not subjective. Right? No, we had a whole episode about Kingdom of Heaven as well.
Subjective. And one day I'll have another one, I'm sure. You know why it's Kingdom of Heaven? The battles are better because they're big, full-scale like battles.
Yeah,
encompassing tens and thousands.
The
of
battles
people.
of Jerusalem are really intense.
It is a stacked cast, and it's got 1 million memorable lines. It's extremely well written.
Yeah, it is extremely well written.
I can quote that movie for days. You know, I did not give the cup to you. He cuts the dude's head off.
Yeah, he cuts off Brendan Gleeson's head.
I could talk about. Oh my God, what was the?
My favorite is always.
What is Jerusalem worth?
Nothing.
And he goes,
Everything.
Yeah. I
Such good. Saladin steals the whole show.
My favorite review is that they say he's the best part of that movie because he's like taller than a glass of cool water, and I'm like, he really is, isn't he?
Is.
And he was that actor is Ghassan Mahmoud, and he wanted to. He turned down a lot of roles after that movie because he was worried that they would harm Middle Eastern representation in movies. That is to this date, like still, I still remember that role or whatever. Mm-hmm. It's so good.
It's so good. He's such a great actor, and it's like, oh man, you could have. Yeah, I mean, you could have been anywhere. Like you know. Oh, you get a vibe that he would have been somebody, if we're talking about actors of different ethnicities, that kind of like Ken Watanabe is like the big older Japanese actor, or before his passing, Irfan Khan was that for Indian actors.
Ghassan Mahmoud did not go on to do like a lot of big stuff. Like he was in the Pirates of the Caribbean movies as the slightly Middle Eastern looking.
Everybody's in those movies.
Yeah.
Somehow everyone's like,
it's a crime that he wasn't in more stuff because he's really good in that movie.
Everyone goes to the Pirates movies to be like, I'm ready to buy another house. Yeah. Put me in.
Chow Yun-Fat did it.
Yep, Chow Yun-Fat did it. Yeah.
Another series of great lines from that movie is your quality will be known among your enemies before ever you meet them, my friend. Is the guy who he kills in the desert, and he takes his manservant as a slave or whatever, and then he lets him go.
It's the guy from Deep Space Nine, right?
Yeah, and it's the guy. He's Prince Doran in Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
And he comes back as like the leader of the Muslim cavalry, and he goes, "That man wasn't your servant." Like, no, he was my servant.
Yeah.
And then he goes like, "Well, what's gonna happen?" He's like, "Well, you reap what you sow." And he goes, you let me live, so I let you live," or whatever. And there's this great line too, where he gives Orlando Bloom the opportunity to go back to Karak at the big battle, and he's like, "You may go back to Karak." He's like, "But if you go there, you will die there." And there's this big army just right behind him. And he's like, "My master is here," or whatever. And I was like, that movie is chock full of memorable lines. There's the Liam Neeson's death speech, is still one of my favorite. When he makes him a knight. See if I can remember this, I get like a gold star. Okay, hold on.
Spoiler alert! I don't have a
spoiler
gold
alert
star
for one of the best like I'm dying.
Well,
speeches.
I mean, like spoiler alert! I don't have a gold star.
Yeah, fair enough. And he goes, "Be without fear in the face of your enemies. Be brave and upright, that God may love thee. Speak the truth always, even if it leads to your death. Like safeguard the helpless and do no wrong." And he goes, "That is your oath." He takes off his ring, gives it to him, backhands him across the face, and says, "And that's so you remember it." They hand him his sword, and he goes, "Rise a knight and Baron of Ibelin." And then Liam Neeson topples over, about to die. And David Thewlis, who plays the Hospitaller Knight, and he goes, "Now is the time to pray to Almighty God, not to your son." He goes, "Are you sorry for all your sins?" He looks at his son, and he says, "For all but one." Yeah. Love it. Yeah. Such a good movie. Like I'm sorry. It's the best epic I can think of at any point when I do. Also, the sword fights are like primo sword fights.
Yeah, they are. There's really good moments.
The extended edition has one where him and Guy fight in Jerusalem after Guy's been humiliated or whatever, after he lost that battle, and it's really good. Anyway, let's move on to the House of Gucci.
So the other, we go from one thing of royalty to another thing of royalty, which is the House of Gucci.
Or as I call it, another excuse to make Jared Leto look ugly.
Boy, everybody was just like, even I was just like, I made a comment about this because they've put Jared Leto. I wonder if Ridley Scott was just harangued by Leto's agents, like he wants to do the role. And it's like I thought about this, like, so how good was his audition? Like, because you have to audition, right?
Sometimes, well, not some. Or maybe sometimes they do write a script being like, "You're the only person." Like when they wanted for Batman, Ben Affleck was the only one they wanted.
But I can see that. You look at Jared Leto, and it's like Jared Leto has to play Paolo Gucci, but he looks nothing like it. So we're gonna have to fill him up with makeup and silicone.
Or we could just hire an ugly.
Or just hire an older man. like eventually, is Jared Leto just gonna be like, I want to take all the old man roles from everybody? It's like, fuck you. Just because you could wear makeup real well, he might do great. He looks. He's.
So did you not like the performance in the trailer? Is it too over the top?
I think it's fine.
Yeah.
I think it's fine, but
trailer
it's baffling.
Yeah, that trailer is like, it's weirdly cut.
Yeah.
Everyone's like line delivery looks weird. But when you see it in the movie, I'm sure it'll be much more natural.
And it's going to be a big thing for Lady Gaga. Lady Gaga plays the woman who marries the Italian woman who marries into the Gucci family in the 80s to Adam Driver. And it kind of is like the rise and fall of this one of the last great like Italian houses of power into the 90s. Like the gods of silk. The House of Gucci existed back in the turn of the century, and a lot of people are like, they know the name Gucci.
They make nice handbags.
They make nice handbags. They make nice clothes. Rappers will talk about them. Famous people talk about them. Hirohiko Araki, the creator of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, gets a lot of his character designs and poses from Gucci models.
I can see it. I was at a comic book store the other day, and I walked by their JoJo manga section or whatever, and I was like, these all look like hyped up versions of like runway models.
He even did a crossover with Gucci, where a couple of characters show up wearing Gucci clothes, wearing
That's
Gucci
hilarious.
model clothes, because he loves models and he loves fashion models. This we'll see how this plays out. I don't know much about the story. It does involve a murder. I know about that. It appears to be it's going to be like a big...
Adam Driver's in both of these. I just realized.
Yes, Adam Driver's in both of these. Adam Driver, everybody wants to be in the Adam Driver business. Good for him. Good for Adam Driver, getting in the Adam Driver business. So Ridley Scott really likes him. I get it. He's probably really great to work with.
Probably.
They got him in blonde hair in this, and glasses, doing an Italian accent. Al Pacino's in it.
It's just no matter what stuff you do to Adam Driver, all I see is Adam Driver. Whereas like Matt Damon was almost unrecognizable. You could put like you could shave his head and put him in an eye patch and dye his skin. I'm like, that's Adam Driver. I know that nose.
And I'm still there for the Adam Driver intensity.
So am I. But like, I'm just saying, like
I just watched.
He is an undisguisable actor.
I just watched Midnight Special for the first time. The Jeff Nichols movie, and he shows up in it.
It's good until the very end, and you're like, what's the whole what?
And he shows up, and he's just like. He kind of reminds me of like when you see Harrison Ford. Speaking of Star Wars, and speaking of that, when you see Harrison Ford in his first role in Apocalypse Now, where he plays like a mousy secretary working for the army, and he's just like, "Oh, I have these folders for you," and it's just like that. That is Harrison Ford. He is a badass. I don't believe this for a second. Yeah. Adam Driver kind of plays a mousy NSA agent, and it's just like. He could do that because he's stringy dude, but I'm like, I know you. I've seen you kill. This is just going to be one of those big family dramas. It does recall to me like All the Money in the World, that one about the other rich family.
I don't know
where their son got kidnapped. I think was it the Rockefellers? I can't recall. It was one where they got originally it was. I pointed a finger at you like, I'm talking about.
I don't know.
It was originally Kevin Spacey, and they cut Kevin Spacey out, gave it to Christopher.
Which was also Ridley Scott. They gave it to Christopher Plummer.
Yeah,
or whatever.
Before he passed away.
It's not Phantom Thread.
No, that's Paul Thomas Anderson.
Yeah. I'm confusing it. It's I know.
It's called All the Money in the World.
Oh, is that what
it's called? Don't know what family is. I think I don't know if it's the Rockefellers or.
It's one of those families.
But this looks very stylized. It looks very 80s, very 90s. We're gonna see a lot of Lady Gaga acting.
Yeah,
and she's fun everywhere. She's got her hair all.
She's fun, but she looks like the kind of person that would send the salad back because the chicken is overcooked or whatever.
But that's perfect for this role.
I guess.
It's perfect for this role.
But I don't like the idea. We got to get to, speaking of like privileged entitled white women, we have to talk about Scarlett Johansson.
I tried to look up a little bit about that. But,
I did too.
I mean, it is all things considered about where's my money.
Yeah.
At a time when it's like, read the room a little bit. Yeah. Then again, that movie had been. We'll get to it in a second.
Yeah.
Long story short, you got Jeremy Irons. You got.
Jeremy Irons is in it.
Jeremy Irons
is unrecognizable.
He's the father. He's like the father Gucci.
And who is Al Pacino then?
The grandfather, essentially, because.
He is that old.
Leto is like the other son,
the older brother,
the older brother who's kind of like the outcast. I read up about these people and just like these people.
They all kind of look craggly except Adam Driver.
Yeah,
which is why I said.
But he looks like he will be.
Adam Driver.
It looks like he will be one day.
I think it looks good. That trailer is just weird to me. It's cut and has the music of an action movie.
Yeah.
Which is strange. Whereas the last duel is like cut perfectly and it makes perfect sense. Whereas here I'm like,
I understand probably why they did that, because it's like we probably just have a pretty standard drama, pretty standard like crime drama going on in this.
Or maybe they want to hype up the like the underworldy Italian like Renaissance-y history of his family.
Well, this is what it would be like to have, you know, these wealthy Medici type.
Yeah.
But they existed. The Gucci's existed. You know, the fall of the House of Gucci. You know, which, you know, there is a murder. And someone gets murdered.
This reminds me of that episode of The Office where where they're in order to distract from whether or not their company is getting bought out, Michael makes them play a game to distract them. And Jim keeps trying to, like, we should really get back to work, guys. And then for a brief moment, Michael Scott has a moment of humanity. It's like, let them play the stupid game, Jim. Like, it's all that they have to distract them from losing potentially their jobs and their lives. And then, like, Jim, like, John Krasinski has to take a hard look at himself. Then he walks in and he goes, guys, there's been another murder. and then they keep playing the game. That's what, and every time there's been a murder. That's all I hear.
It's been a murder.
But it's like in a Savannah accent.
Well, that's the House of Gucci.
Yeah.
We'll see how that plays. The big things from it is Lady Gaga is probably aiming for another Oscar nomination.
She was in Star is Born. I have a Star is Born. I've seen it several times. She's really good in that.
She's really good in that. She's an excellent. Well, that's not surprising. She comes from entertainment.
Yeah,
she is an entertainer.
I always say there are some people there's two kinds of people out there. There's people who feel like acting is such a incredible art passed down from the gods, and only a select few have the ability. And then there's people who are like, I could act and actually can. I think she's one of those people.
I lean more to that side of be like everyone has the potential to fill a character, because characters are inspired by the billions of people who exist. Yeah. One of those billions probably fits that, and it's not always.
Not every.
And not always is Jared Leto in goddamn makeup. Yeah. I'm sure he's going to do great, but I always feel Jared Leto always kind of weirds me out a little bit.
I think he's got some stink on him, and I think it's come from like the method acting rumors about him. Like apparently he method acted on the set of The Little Things, and I will say The Little Things, he's really good in it.
I'm very curious about that, because that's a real good cast.
It's good, but it's derivative. It's one of the things, like in the hands of lesser people, this would be a boring by the numbers movie, but it's by John Lee Hancock, who's pretty good at what he does, and then it's like Rami Malek and Denzel Washington and Jared Leto.
That's pretty.
It's a bunch of really good. Like, and
you want to see those three go at it, because that's a really good combo.
There's a great part where Denzel Washington is following him, and he knows he's following him.
I think I saw that in the trailer.
Yeah, like he follows him to one side of the interstate and he's on the other. So he goes around just trying to like pull up behind him, and he's gone, and he looks on the other side and he's just looking at him over there. And he's like, it's Jared Leto's pretty good. The thrust at the end of the movie is like, well, did he actually kill these people or did he not?
Right.
And it's just like it leaves it all up in the air.
I have to check.
And I kind of prefer it that way. Some people were like, "Oh, we wanted to like catch the bad guy," and I think
sometimes it's never as easy as that.
It's No Country for Old Men's less talented younger brother. That's what that movie is.
There's a lot of those.
Anyway,
so that's Ridley Scott trailers for things. You had some comic DC.
I have a bunch. There's a bunch of little DC pieces of news. One is the lady from In the Heights has been cast as Batwoman.
Yeah, actually, I was just gonna say I noticed in that I looked on the trailer, look on the cast list for House of Gucci, and Reeve Carney is going to be playing Tom Ford, the fashion designer Tom Ford, and Reeve Carney.
Isn't Tom Ford also a director?
No, yes, there is a Tom Ford who is a director. I think
Nocturnal Animals.
Yeah, but this is no, it's Tom Ford, the fashion designer.
Okay.
Reeve Carney is big Broadway guy. Is in Hadestown, did a bunch of stuff with that. But most people also remember him as playing Spider-Man in Spider-Man: Turn Off the Dark.
Okay.
The Bono and the Edge musical.
Right on.
Do you remember that?
No, I don't.
Oh, there's some fun YouTube videos about the disaster that was Spider-Man: Turn Off the Dark.
I'll have to check it out.
It was directed by I hate that I can't remember her name, Julie Taymor.
She did the Lion King?
Yep. Yeah. It was directed by Julie Taymor, music by Bono and The Edge, and it nearly killed half the cast. It's one of the great Broadway disasters.
Leslie Grace has been cast as Batgirl in an HBO Max exclusive thing.
Interesting.
And J.K. Simmons from the Snyder Cut and Justice League is coming back. So Snyderverse confirmed, maybe.
It feels like there might be something.
Well, they're trying to avoid destroying any canon they have, essentially. But that's really cool. The one I'm a little bit more excited about, not that I'm not excited about her getting this, is Zolo Maraduena from Cobra Kai has been cast as Jaime Reyes in the Blue Beetle movie that's coming up.
Yes.
Which I am 100% like, that's great. That's a great casting.
Yeah.
I can see
saw that. I knew we were going to bring that up, and I was like, I'm going to bring that up, and I forgot about it. But yeah, he's going to be playing Blue Beetle.
Yep. Looks great. I can't wait to just see him interact with the Scarab. Like my favorite interactions with Blue Beetle are in Young Justice, where the Scarab is a voice in his head, like eliminate them now. Like and he's just
kind of Venom.
It's kind of like Venom-y, but like there's a really great one when he fights. I can't remember who he fights. I want to say it's like so. The whole time is like the Scarab is an alien entity from a civilization called the Reach or whatever, and they're like these. They attach to life forms and then they conquer the planet essentially. But for whatever reason, he's
has the willpower to over.
Yeah. And there's been several Blue Beetles. I can't remember all of them.
Well,
one of them,
Ted Cord.
Ted Cord, the first big one from the Silver Age. What's the Silver Age time period?
The 70s and 80s.
I want to say that, that's the big one.
The big thing I remember about Ted Cord is him and Booster Gold were big buddies.
Yep.
And then Max Lord is kills him. And that was a big moment about 15 years ago.
They're like the founding JLI members.
Yeah.
And then sometime after
and it's also because Booster Gold and Blue Beetle got into so many shenanigans and they were just kind of comic relief.
They're the best bros, yeah. Everyone's like cast Alan Tudyk and Nathan Fillion.
Yeah, that was the one for the longest thing. And I
would say cast Alan Tudyk. Nathan Fillion's probably too old.
I think you could. Well, it'd be kind of fun if they did sort of like a thing where there was another Blue Beetle, like Nathan Fillion, and then he gets killed, and it's kind of like the Lantern Ring, and it just we give it to him.
But there's one where what prevents him from being the best superhero he can be is he's always fighting the Scarab because the Scarab wants complete dominance or whatever, and the Scarab kind of like RoboCop wants to kill people in the most efficient ways when he has to sort of work around that. There's a great moment where they realize they're about to be destroyed. And they fight like Darkseid or someone like way above their power level, and he goes like, "Don't worry, Jaime Reyes. Like this time we shall fight together." And then they like his eyes like light up blue, and they like fight at peak like efficiency or whatever. And Darkseid, I can't remember who it was, but I want to say it was Darkseid. It was like a big DC villain or whatever. He goes, "Didn't I fight you before?" And he's like, "Last time you fought us, we were divided. Like this time we fight as one." And he lights up like these big arm cannons and just lets him fucking have it. It's a really cool character. He's really fucking cool. And him and Firestorm have a lot of like they're like the new Booster Gold and Blue Beetle. It's Blue Beetle and Firestorm because they're the teenage superheroes on the Justice League, and that's pretty cool. It's good stuff. And I think that's great casting, and I think he'll crush it.
I'm excited for that.
And the guy who's directing it is also, oh my god, he's done stuff before, but he's also a big like Latino director, I think.
So it's going to be kind of really.
Ben Shapiro wrote a thing saying it's wokeism gone amok or whatever.
Really? Who gives a
I couldn't be more excited because he is legitimately one of my favorite like side characters of DC, and it's not Captain Atom, always on the bench, but one day we'll get there. But
is that going to HBO Max as well?
It is HBO Max exclusive.
Okay,
yes.
So we get to see that this DC world is starting to build up.
They say it's an exclusive. I wouldn't be surprised if it also gets this theatrical release or whatever.
Is it going to be a film or a series?
It's a film.
Okay,
that's what it sounded like.
Interesting.
But I think it's a great idea, and I think that's great casting. So we got two big DC casting news that happened. The number of stuff that's in production right now. I just want to go through it again because it's astounding to me. Aquaman 2, Shazam 2, Black Adam just wrapped production. The Rock gave away $10,000 to 3 people on the cast. They did like a raffle. It was really sweet.
That's really cool.
The Batman is now officially coming out in 2022. Boo.
Yeah, that movie's done.
And what was
Give us the bat.
Yeah. What was there's one other thing that's in production that I know I just forgot about. But I mean, between like those, The Flash is in production.
Right, The Flash.
We've seen, I don't know if you've seen shots of Ben Affleck's Batman on set. It's not him, it's his stunt double because he's still working on another movie and then he's coming in like a few months or whatever. But he's on a Bat motorcycle. It looks pretty cool. So
it's kind of like the Bat motorcycle that Robert Pattinson's stunt double was on.
No, it's like a legit, like that's just a motorcycle. motorcycle,
Right.
but his is like it's a bat motorcycle, and it looks real.
Bat-cycle.
It looks like Snyder's Batmobile.
Yeah.
If you've seen that, so like it looks very reminiscent of that. Also, some fan, and this is like super rumor mill because this fan who apparently has a history of doesn't have a history of being a liar has said I was on the set of the Flash movie and Henry Cavill was there. So we don't know. Another scooper went in and like researched it and said it's not true, but we don't know. If that's true, I'm gonna lose my fucking mind. But we've seen shots of, oh my God, what's her name? The girl they cast as Supergirl. We've seen shots of her in costume. And we've seen we haven't seen Michael Keaton in suit yet, but we've seen references to Michael Keaton's Batman, essentially. And apparently Ezra Miller might be playing both the good guy and the bad guy.
Ooh.
So, like, a lot of cool Flash news. I just wanted to put all the DC news into one big thing because we're going to be talking about a DC movie here very shortly because we also watched The Suicide Squad.
Yes.
But that's all I really have for that. Do we want to talk about people suing Disney?
No. I don't have enough information on that.
I have a little bit if you're interested, or if you want to save it.
Because I feel like our movie news is kind of run a little long.
Okay,
so
well,
we can wait till next time to talk about that. To
Okay,
see
fair enough.
who else hops on board and like where that lawsuit is going to come down.
Right.
And be like we can talk about it. And
then let's talk about the big one.
let's talk about the big one. It's the size of a sand planet.
Size of a giant sandworm. So good. Dude.
It's Dunk.
It's Dunk.
Everyone. There are a lot of people who memed because of like the font. The E looks like a C,
Yeah.
and so they've been calling it Dunk for Duncan, Idaho.
Yeah. What can I say about this?
Boy!
This movie is gonna crush. This movie is going to do what The Lord of the Rings did.
You think it's gonna
when
be-
Return of the King came out in that 2003 December, and it got $1 billion. One of the at the time only one of 3 movies to ever gross that much money.
Yeah.
That like Titanic and like I think Gone with the Wind when adjusted for inflation or whatever. It's going to do all the money.
You think it's gonna come in like a wrecking ball?
And maybe it's because I'm too biased because I know maybe like to an outsider who doesn't know what Dune is, they are not as excited. But a lot of people probably didn't know what Lord of the Rings was either.
I will tell you from the point of view of my employment where I work.
Oh yeah, you mentioned this to me.
The book has been selling like wild.
Yeah.
A lot of young people are coming in and buying Dune. A lot of people are buying Dune. They were buying Dune before, but now it's like I see them. They're buying the book all the time. I've joked that it's the Timothée Chalamet effect. That they're just like, oh, that dreamy Timothée Chalamet.
I always poke at him a little bit, and I shouldn't because he's probably a very nice man, and he's probably he's like 20 years old, but like he's a boy.
Yeah, I could still be envious and be like, all right, that's right. They're gonna keep getting younger.
he's probably really nice, and I'm happy that he's getting in these interesting projects
Because he's a good actor.
I don't see the action. I've said it before. I don't see this grand action hero that Denis Villeneuve saw. That being said, this movie didn't necessarily change my mind on that, but this trailer is huge.
Yeah.
It's to quote like Bernie Sanders, it's huge.
It's big. It's it feels more accessible and more mainstreamed and more blockbuster than I originally thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
Because Dune is as a series is so, for being like this landmark milestone in science fiction.
It has action.
It's very esoteric.
Yeah, it has action, but it's sort of more about like Messiah mythology and stuff than it is about like it. And I don't want to.
It's got this. Did you see something?
No, I was just looking.
Oh, okay. I was like, did you see a giant spider? Or?
It has action,
this like,
but it doesn't have like in. And I don't want to poo-poo on it because I think when I read the book, which has been so long ago, I have to go reread it now. But like, I remember reading it and being like, even though it's written like it was written in the 70s or whatever.
Yeah.
Like they didn't understand how to write action sequences then, but like as a book, it's still very entertaining and engaging. Like it's not a boring read,
right?
The way a lot of books
feels. It feels at times so. For me, at least, because I've not read it, and it feels at times so inaccessible because it's so myth. Like it's so far into the future, it almost ceases being sci-fi and becomes more fantasy.
Yeah,
and it has all this, particularly Christian and Islamic kind of vibes to it, and a very, very psychedelic. I feel like that's Herbert was going on that as well.
I think inaccessible is the best word. I don't think it's an inaccessible book. I think if you sit down and read it, you will enjoy yourself.
Mm-hmm.
But I think for some people, they're not. If you look at that trailer and then read the book, you're going to be a little bit. it's not like a huge division, but maybe it's like that where they're not quite simpatico,
Right.
which is why I think they got the perfect person to make this.
Is Denis Villeneuve.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And not like 10 years ago, Denis Villeneuve, who all of his movies were kind of, they're good but inaccessible.
Right.
He's made Bloody Runner 2049, and like I think he knows what he has. And I think he wants this to be like a Lord of the Rings epic.
Yeah. And
But-
it feels like it.
Yeah.
Like the color scheme, the way the shots are composed.
Let me say something that I think you'll appreciate. It is Denis Villeneuve at his most accessible because there's jokes,
Yeah.
some nice funny jokes. Smile, Gurney. I am smiling.
Well, but also like you get like I want guns all over that thing and everything.
Yeah.
It does. That's why I may say it feels more mainstream. It's like it doesn't feel like they're going to be sitting around talking philosophy, you know. And you're actually going to get some like
I think it's gonna be. There's gonna be
some Duncan Idaho kicking ass.
There's
you
gonna be
know?
enough. I think there's gonna be both. I think you're gonna get both because this movie is gonna be long as fuck. It's gonna be like 2 hours and 40 minutes long. I'm sure.
And it's going to be the beginning of surely more.
It's just like I
Like, we
hope
may
this
get
does become.
we may get Children of Dune,
I
Dune
hope so.
Messiah,
Because a lot of people think Children of Dune is as good as Dune, if not better.
Chapter House.
Yeah.
Eventually going so far into the future, we're even farther in the future of the future. People start turning into worms.
Yeah.
You know.
But this is only supposed to be most of like the first half of the book.
That's right, because it is going to be a two-parter because it's the latter half is going to be because one of the things is they haven't cast
Rabin's brother.
yes
I can't remember his name, but I know who you're talking about.
Sting's character in the
Yes,
Lynch one.
that's right. Speaking of Rabin, Dave Bautista looks thoroughly
He looks
scary.
terrifying.
Yeah,
David Dalmatian or
Desmalchian.
Desmalchian is Peter DeVries.
Oh, is he in it? I didn't even see him.
I think that's him. He said
Maybe
he's
it was-
like
it
he said
might
he's
have
like
been-
nightmarish in it. Like he's like so creepy in it.
Oh, it might have been so quick I didn't even think to like see it. Can we talk about? Cause I know you want to talk about this. Can we talk about Stellan Skarsgård as Baron Harkonnen?
He
It looks great.
He looks great. He looks also very scary.
Yeah.
Like that one scene where he just kind of like floats up a little bit, and he's just like, oh, what am I doing?
This is my
This is
Dune."
my Dune. Yeah, he's playing. Yeah, David Dalmatian's playing Peter DeVries.
Yeah. And obviously, we could talk about like I think there is no better casting than like there's people that come close. Ironically, I think Oscar Isaac as Duke Leto might be the least perfectly cast. There's a lot of people I think you could put in that role and he would do well, and he's one of them. But when I close my eyes and think of him, I don't think of Oscar Isaac. But when I close my eyes and think of Duncan Idaho, I see Jason Momoa.
You see Jason Momoa, and Jason Momoa is like having a blast, having an absolute blast. And Josh Brolin is Gurney Hellick is a great choice.
Yep.
Originally Patrick Stewart.
Yep.
So that's pretty neat.
It's got a huge. Charlotte Rampling plays the. She's like the lady
She
priestess.
plays the mother, right?
Yeah,
the mother superior, sort of the one who gives the
put
test.
your hand in the box or whatever,
You
like that
only
lady.
take, fear is the mind killer. Fear is the
And
new
like
death.
it's got enough.
Wasn't she in the original though? Charlotte Rampling.
I can't remember.
I feel like she might have been in that.
It's got enough of the.
Zendaya
Yeah.
is in it. Benicio del Toro.
No, Javier Bardem.
Ooh.
Other Latino actor.
Javier Bardem is in it.
Benicio del Toro's too weird. he doesn't strike me as like
dude,
a
you get
leader.
him to play a Harkonnen.
That'd be pretty good.
He would have been a pretty interesting Baron Harkonnen. Either way, I mean, yeah, he looks terrifying.
I mean, this movie has all the high cinema things that you want. It's got that beautiful Roger Deakins cinematography, that beautiful color grading.
Special effects look natural and crisp.
There's that part when they're like, when Josh Brolin, when Gurney says like, I want everything with guns off the ground, and then like a missile or something hits this big mothership in the back, and it's just like a huge, like gargantuan explosion, and I was just like, Jesus Christ, that looks very real.
And you get to see like it really presents like that, you know, the House Harkonnen like brutalizes these people on Arrakis, on Dune, and you see a lot of I feel like the image of these last trees, these last looking like almost like it almost looks like scenes where you see like parts of California on fire. Like it's like this is the last bit of green and life on this deserted planet, and they're destroying it almost like they're a climate disaster. And of course the big thing is the Emperor has bestowed upon House Atreides, one of the great royal houses, and I think a lot of people will draw some Game of Thrones connection with this because houses, different families, warring families, has become the custodians of Arrakis, where they mine the spice.
Yeah, because they took it away from House Harkonnen, who had it before them, because they're dicks, basically.
They're tyrants, yeah. And they're like, no, we're going to give it over
But it's weird that the Emperor makes that choice, but makes other choices that he makes later. And it doesn't matter.
We'll see.
I think that's one of the things about Dune that is the more high-mindedness, is that, like, we learn, we get so much great technology, and we go into the future and have all this great intellect. But we also revert back to fiefdom.
Yep.
And to what's the word?
To
feudalism. That's the word.
Feudalism and royalism and all that. And
you get to pick between two colonizers: the one that brutalized, destroys you, and the one that they value you, but they're patronizing in a way. That's kind of how I view House Atreides. They're well intentioned, but they're
still royal. They're still
colonizers.
Yeah. And then you get the son that essentially becomes a terrorist.
Yeah, kind of.
It becomes the Muad'Dib, and it's just like, I'm gonna go literally join a jihad.
We get the I can't quite remember from Dune. Maybe if you don't know the answer to this is fine. What were the name of the special death troops that fought for the Emperor?
Don't know.
There was they had a whole planet where they're brutally trained. They're like the space Spartans, but they're more desensitized.
Like Space Marines,
and they're I feel like they've merged them with the Harkonnens. The Harkonnens have them at their disposal now. Are they?
Because I see a little bit of them using the vibro blades and that kind of vibrating art. It looks really cool.
Yeah.
Because I'll never forget the David Lynch one from the '83.
Yeah, this is why I brought up David Lynch earlier.
Where they look where the armor looks like Minecraft characters. I still think there are parts of that movie that still look great to this day. I think there's still some.
Oh yeah, I'm sure. It's not the ugliest movie I've seen, but it's just a bad movie.
It's a bad movie, but it also, I think a lot of it comes from David Lynch not getting his vision fully. Of course, Dune is also was something that Jodorowsky wanted to do.
Yep.
The great documentary Jodorowsky's Dune talks about his great ambitions. It always has called for ambition
because it's an ambitious book,
and Jodorowsky's never came to view.
Lynch's was compromised.
Lynch's was compromised, and it's like they just kind of let it.
We did get a reasonably okay sci-fi
We got Children
series.
of Dune with James McAvoy as Duke Leto II.
No, before that.
Really?
The sci-fi series.
Was that not the one?
Well, they did do a sequel.
They did
to
do
it,
Children of Dune.
There's Dune and there's Children of Dune.
I did not know. I forgot about that one.
Yeah, with who I thought is actually really good is William Hurt as Duke Leto.
Oh yeah, that is a really good call.
Yeah,
because I also still. Even though he,
if you don't want to read the book, but you want to know what first of all, don't read the book and don't watch the sci-fi series. Go into this with nothing. But if you really want to know what it's about, go watch the sci-fi series.
Because without Dune, there's a lot of sci-fi we wouldn't have. Dune's the reason we have Star Wars.
Yeah,
like that's because Dune came out 65,
something like that,
sometime in the mid '60s. So it was. I think you could read a lot about Frank Herbert's writing that at the time of the '60s, the spice melange as this society that uses essentially a recreational drug in order to advance civilization recalls a lot of psychedelia. Yeah. And I think that there's like
commentary on Vietnam, stuff like that, and
and imperialism and things like that.
What's the word for a war when it's a war for resources? There's a word for
proxy wars and things like that.
Yeah.
Well,
because spice, it makes you live for an indeterminable amount of time. Right. If you keep taking it, you'll keep living, kind of thing.
Which allows you to travel through space, which takes a long hundreds of years.
But so there's lots of social commentary about it, which is why again I go back to I think they got the perfect person for this, which is Denis Villeneuve is a smart enough director to not ignore all that stuff, and he committed to doing Dune, not knowing if he would get to do a sequel, hoping that it does well enough to get him to that.
That's always the risk. That's always the risk. But I think
because they didn't sign a contract or anything. But I know he will want to do one because he doesn't want to start this and not finish it. But I was very much I was when I heard Denis Villeneuve was doing it, at first I was like, oh, he may be too inaccessible. And then like watching Blade Runner 2049, I was like, he's mellowing out.
Yeah.
He's kind of, it's him
Well,
putting.
he's only done. I mean, like before that, Arrival was probably like his biggest movie, and then before that was Sicario, and they're all very intimate, and dirty.
They don't
like,
have that big
rough.
grand scale, whereas Blade Runner does
Like,
kind of.
Prisoners is a rough movie, but it also has a style to it that is so distinct that if you told me years ago that the guy who did Prisoners was going to do Dune, I'd be like, you know what? I can see that. That's not too far. That's like if you
someone told you the guy who did Enemy is going to do Dune.
Yeah, good point.
I'd be like, that's scary.
Yeah. But you look at how he has this crisp, like very similar to something like a Steven Soderbergh, but a little more edge, a little more like earned edge to it. Like
or a little more high-minded.
Yeah, like Sicarios a rough, almost a horror movie.
Yeah.
And it would be similar to being like going back to like Brick and say, hey, do you know Rian Johnson's going to do a Star Wars one day? And I'd be like, I could kind of see that. I guess that makes sense.
I think also like he's being bolstered by like people that are a little more minded to blockbuster movie making. Like John Spates helped write the screenplay, who's had his hand on like Spider-Man: Homecoming and stuff like that. So I think that's. I think this is like, it might be, if this movie comes out and it somehow is bad, I'll be shocked.
Or if it's under received. Yeah. I think that's the fear right now is.
I'm predicting it makes all the money and it gets a shit ton of awards.
I bet it's going to be a big Oscar darling. I bet it's going to be a big.
And if
Oscar
it doesn't,
player.
the Oscar is. I mean, I've already kind of think they are, but like if it doesn't, the Oscars are tremendously out of touch.
Yeah, I feel like this is. I think everybody's got their pulse excited for this one. This is probably one of the big movies of the year. And since two of the ones we're going to talk about, two of the only other movies that I've been excited for all year. Yeah. The Green Knight and the Suicide Squad. We've seen them. They exist. We've watched them.
Since we're here, do we want to go ahead and move on to the Green Knight?
Let's do that. Let's talk about the Green Knight. This is an A24 bit, so it's been very on the mind of everybody who's an A24 person.
A24 has cornered the market on like
indie,
like some cerebral horror movies.
Yes, they've got that, and they've also have a lot of like
they did that
post like mumblecore. Like stuff like the Florida Project and things like that. Like you can have both. You can have like mid 90s, but you can also have Midsommar.
And that movie with the Chinese grandma who's dying, but we can't tell her.
Oh, the Visit.
No,
the one with Awkwafina.
Yes,
but I haven't seen. I really hate that I haven't seen it because it looks really good. And I also saw an interview with the director and The Farewell.
Yeah, that's it.
I think is it Chloe Zhao? No, Lulu Wang. Lulu Wang was the director of that. So this is an A24. This feels way in the A24 milieu. It is an adaptation of one of the oldest pieces of Western literary canon, which is Sir Gawain and the Green Knight, written by somebody. It is in the Arthurian canon, closer to the end of the Arthurian storyline.
Yeah, it's not about King Arthur anymore.
No, but he's there, and this is his.
He's Nick Fury.
He's
in the background.
This is his nephew.
Yeah,
right. Because I know it messes with the story a little bit. It changes things up a little bit to sort of like change the way they do it. And I actually listened to.
Gawain has always traditionally been his nephew, has he not? For the most part,
right. It's a matter of who's his sister.
Yeah,
like who's his mother is the thing, and it's like in this they kind of comprise a couple of things. It is played by Dev Patel, and it is directed by David Lowery, as we mentioned earlier. And we went and saw it. One thing I'll say real quick is I immediately went to the source and I was like, I want to hear David Lowery's point of view. So I listened to a couple of interviews of him, and he said the idea came for him when he went back home and was digging through his childhood toys and found his old not Labyrinth and not Legend, Dark Crystal toys, I think.
Right on.
I think it was Dark Crystal. He found like Dark Crystal toys, and it immediately made him think. Like he took them outside and like put them up, and like he's like, I want to make like an adventure movie. I want to make a movie about like a quest. that alleged, according to him in this interview, that's what gave him the idea. Was like, I found my old like toys and was just like, ooh, I want to make a quest. So he did. So he did Gowan and the Green Knight, because I guess he doesn't really do things that conventionally.
Yeah.
David Lowery is not a very conventional storyteller. If you've seen a ghost
might be
story,
something we come back to.
yeah. If you talk about a ghost story, one of the most unconventional and yet really good stories about a ghost is, so Dev Patel, Sean Harris plays
King Arthur.
I'm gonna pull the cast list.
Joel Edgerton plays the man.
Yes, Joel Edgerton plays the man.
Alicia Vikander plays Ethel and also the lady.
Who are important characters.
Ralph Ineson plays the Green Knight.
Yeah, that's really great. Ralph Ineson rules.
Yeah.
Did you say
Also known
Ineson? Is it Ineson?
I don't know. He's Dagmar Cleftjaw from Game of Thrones. A fine speech.
Well, to me, more
He's
than
also the
anything,
dad from
he's
The
the
Witch.
dad from The Witch,
And he's
because
in
he's
the
got
British
one of the
Office.
deepest voices ever.
Yeah.
He's also, like, in a second in one of the Star Wars. He should have gotten more in that. He's got one of the greatest voices in acting right now.
Yeah, he does. He's good.
And they put him in makeup and everything to look like this tree man. The Green Knight himself looks like
great.
Looks like if Treebeard had a baby with the person.
A regular woman.
Yes, and I don't know. I'm kind of. What did you think? What did you think about this?
Well,
Just you had seen it when we went and saw it.
I've seen it twice.
I did not know you already seen it because you were worn out.
Yeah, a little bit.
And you fell asleep more than a few times, and I
Yes,
was
I
like,
did.
"Oh no!" But then you're like, "I've seen it more." I'm like, "Okay, stakes are not as high."
Well, I saw it when I was feeling very under the weather too. I was just not feeling it very well.
Yeah, you got to be a little. You got to be a little pepped up for this one. This will put you down.
I rallied at the end because the end is. And I don't want to say it's like the we'll get to it.
We'll get to it. We'll get to it.
I was excited for this
'Cause
movie because you
believe it or
first
not,
showed
even
me
though
the
this is
first
one of the
trailer
old-
like a year ago or
Yes,
whatever, and
yeah.
I was like, "This looks awesome."
Yeah,
and then,
I have been.
and then it went radio silence for like a year because of COVID, and then we finally said, "All right, we're putting it out in July."
Yeah, because this had been one of the films that I was just like glued to. Like I'm like, there's something about this that's calling to me, and I don't have any kind of emotional connection to Arthurian legend. I feel like you're closer to that, as we've talked about before, than I am.
Well, I
But
love
the-
epics,
yeah.
as we've already established.
The aesthetic of it, the tone of it, the way it's shot, the way it feels. Like I was like, I'm emotionally moved by this, and it kind of is somewhat a very different thing from what was presented. I feel like a lot of people went into this and had very negative responses. I've heard stories about people who walked out, people who were
Can I
bored.
preempt you because I have something I want to do for this? I want to read
Great.
the Facebook comments.
Oh,
That's what I got.
That's what you want. That makes your life better.
Well, I think it's going to summarize exactly what we're
Getting at
about.
with this.
One guy, best movie of the year for me, full of amazing visuals and magic. Another guy, pretty excited to see this. Loved those trailers. Thought they were really epic. Nothing happened. It was the slowest, most off-tone movie I've ever seen. Enjoyed this movie immensely. Red alert warning, worst movie in history.
So you could
Total 100% trash crap. Slow, boring, made no sense whatsoever. Terrible upon terrible. Dev Patel and Alicia Vikander were great. Next person. Just saw it. I'm sorry, but what a terribly boring movie. Next person. It's a good movie. Not quite the great film I was hoping for, but that I hope it would be. Last 20 minutes in particular brought it down a lot for me. So
it is
the
divisive.
audience, yeah,
like,
critics love it. Audiences are mixed at best, is what I would say.
and I've actually
And it has
seen
that famous Rotten Tomatoes ratio where it's 90 on one side, it's reverse Last Jedi or reverse BVS. It's 90 on this side and like 40 on that
it's
side.
60 or something or 50 something on there. So it's
Well,
literally
60 would be. It wasn't 60 because 60 would be technically fresh,
Right.
on any side. But it was like in the 40s or something.
because I've even seen people who really I see are really like art house people are also kind of divided on this one too.
And I'll say, without condoning or condemning, I get the reaction.
Oh yeah,
But I got
totally
the reaction
understand.
for those movies too. So let me
Right.
say, I can see why someone would, because we also had a conversation about marketing for this movie a little bit after it, and I was like, those trailers do not prepare you for this movie. Those trailers make you think you are in for a sweeping odyssey. Like especially the end of the last trailer when the night and I can't blame them because it's the job of the people is to like make trailers that get you excited. So if you wanted to show what this movie was like, the trailers probably wouldn't be very exciting. But the trailer at the very end, it goes, "Shall we finish our game?" And he reaches down and he picks up the axe, and you think you're getting like a showdown.
Right.
It's not about that. I think we both probably knew that going in, or at least I felt like this is not. I can recognize when I'm being cleverly marketed to, and I know that this is not what that movie is, and I kind of had made my peace with that.
And I'll come back to that, and I want to talk about that after we get closer to the end and our final thoughts on it related to where the Gawain and the Green Knight story is in the cultural like zeitgeist, because I feel like
in the zeitgeist it's kind of nowhere. It's not a popular story,
which is very interesting, and we'll talk about it because it is something I feel like at least if not most people had to encounter in like English class in high school.
Me too.
And yet it doesn't occupy the same space as something like The Inferno or Beowulf, talking about the old Western classics.
Well, ironically, Beowulf is the first, it's the first blockbuster epic.
Right.
Maybe Gilgamesh, but I'm not going that far back. No. But it's the first example of
Genji.
the blockbuster epic or something that I can think of. My thoughts at seeing this movie are twofold. It is slow, a slog, cerebral, but that doesn't mean it has nothing to offer, is what I came away with. And I think at the end I'll summarize it if it's more good or bad after I talk my way through it. There are things that I would just trim and change. There are weird decisions that are made that I'm not going to say David Lowery made a mistake, but I think he probably just didn't care. For one particular thing comes back with the mother, Morgana. There's a thing that's sort of set up with her that's not paid off in any way, and I don't understand why it's in there. And there's also a thing there's a weird talk about red and the color green that really slows the movie down by 40 minutes. It's not 40 minutes.
And that's actually a really kind of crucial moment of dialogue, considering there's not a lot of dialogue in this movie. It is very atmospheric. Actually, there is actually a lot more talk in it than I was expecting. I actually thought it would be a lot more quiet.
Yeah. There's big giants that are in there. There's a lot of things in there that I can see when people say nothing happens or it's slow and boring.
A lot of things happen. It's just what happened.
To what end?
Yeah, just what happened. I'll say that I meant in the time from when we watched it to now that I was going to watch it again. Didn't get a chance to do that. Didn't get a chance to do that. I feel like this is going to very much be a second watcher for me, and I think the second time around, I feel like I've seen that kind of going around, being like the second time I saw it, I appreciated it more.
I think you asked me that when I left the movie. This is my second time watching. Well, what did you feel on your second time? And I'm like, I feel the same. I felt the same at the end of the second watch. Now, granted, I dozed off somewhere in the middle of it, but I felt largely,
which is not a good sign of being am I really tuned in?
I felt largely the same though, but I still liked the parts that I liked the same. So I'm pretty even on where I was with it.
I guess we could talk a little bit about what the story is. It's because, like I said, the story, unless you are, and I've seen this before, unless you are versed in academic English, is not something that everybody knows. They know King Arthur, and some of them might know some more people in the Round Table, but Gawain is not this lionizing character. He's not this that story, despite where it is very
in the Morte
obscured.
In the Morte de Arthur, Gawain is the one that accuses Lancelot of seducing Guinevere,
of adultery,
and demands him to a trial by combat or whatever. There's something similar that happens there where King Arthur says that he would fight Gawain for that, but he's the king, so he must be the judge. It's in Excalibur too, ironically. There's a similar thing.
Excalibur does show up in this.
Yeah, they don't necessarily say that it's Excalibur.
There's also a lot of things that are not said yet. Either in the trailer, you see a guy, a wizardly looking man with pagan symbols
like that. I'm it's probably Merlin.
I think it's Merlin. Yeah. You don't have to say it because it's also not that kind of movie.
Yeah.
It's not an Arthur movie.
The magic is very druidish.
It is. It is something
subtle.
that I love, which is very similar to The Witch, which is the clashing of the new Christian world
against the pagan,
with the outskirts of the pagan the pagan time that was there before.
Yeah.
I love stories about that, where you get that in probably one of my
Civilization versus the great unknown.
Right. One of my other favorite little, very, very different is the Tom Moore film Secret of Kells. It's an animated film about a young boy who befriends a spirit girl, and he's a monk. He's a monk in Ireland, and he's an Irish monk who they got the Book of Kells, the Book of Colors, and they're being besieged by the Vikings and the Scandinavians, and in between is him connecting with this part of the pagan world. And it's a beautiful, beautiful animated film from Tom Moore, who also did that most recent Wolfwalkers and Song of the Sea.
I don't know what those
well, there. So,
but I will take your word.
I'll tell you more about it later. He's kind of secretly like doing all these great art films that are beautiful, like animated family films. But I always love stories about this, and this is very. It is that, but it's not the main theme of this. So the story is that we are in a very much more realistic kind of
King Arthur times.
Yes, it's not high pillars and everything. You know, it's still shitty old London.
It's England in the Dark Ages.
Right. It ain't fun.
This isn't Guy Ritchie's King Arthur, which I still argue is worth watching just for the sheer acid trip of it all.
Yeah, it definitely isn't that. It is.
In fact, I might even wish it was a little more that. For a movie that is as cerebral as it is, I think you could have leaned into "this is a world that you don't know" kind of.
I mean, there's straight up a scene involving psychedelia, and so I think that is there. I kind of remember. I kind of think about something like A Field in England for a minute there too. Ben Wheatley, who plays a lot with that. And it is Sir Gawain is kind of it's funny because we were talking about Henry, the Shakespearean Henry, who kind of is very similar character, except less noble. He's a young man who is hanging out in whorehouses and drinking. He's in his early mid-20s or so. He's a bit of like a privileged brat who kind of gets to but he's also like coming into the court. This is in the winter of King Arthur's life. He's an older man. Him and Guinevere are older, and of course it's Christmas, New Year's, Christmas, the end of the season, that era of what is also the solstice. And a knight shows up unannounced and brings forth a fig leaf and everything, and says
holly leaf.
A holly leaf, yeah. This
didn't think I would catch that literary reference.
I thought it was like extend the fig, but he comes in his big horse, and he is.
They have a really creepy possession type thing. He gives the letter to Arthur, who hands it to Guinevere, who reads it.
Right.
And her eyes go green, and like the lights flicker out or whatever.
And she's an almighty king.
Yeah. And it's his voice echoing throughout the hall. It's very creepy.
Yeah. It is very magic, and it's an old magic kind of vibe.
And while this is happening, I guess we're kind of in spoilers a little bit, but I mean, this movie is so niche, it's kind of hard to talk about specific things.
Yeah, I mean, we don't have to like. I say like essentially,
we'll be
the Green Knight.
minorly-
The Green Knight says, "Challenge me in a game." And Gawain being like, "I'm young, I'm kind of a fuck up, and I don't really have any story to my name." He feels ashamed to be around these men of like legends.
We'll get back to that because I think that might be one of the best parts. But the Green Knight asks any of these brave knights to participate in a game with him, which is to strike the hardest blow they can against him, and then 1 year hence they will receive the same, essentially.
Which that's kind of was not in the advertisement to be like, this is what this is. It's not a duel. It's not a fight.
They do say that part though. The second trailer is like 1 year hence.
But you would think it's a battle, like it's a fight to the death or something. But instead it is a equalizing blow, and this is true to the story.
Yeah, he literally kneels down and lets him
and
cut his head off.
Sir Gawain very nervously, is just like, what? And slays him quite gorily. But he picks his head up because he is not of this world, even though he is literally of this world.
And he says, in 1 year, you'll meet me at the Green Chapel. And then he picks up his head and laughs riding away. This is what I was saying, is like they make these choices with the movie. Like when he picks up his head and rides away, laughing evilly, the lights turn back on now that this evil presence is gone. Aside from this, I do not get a overtly evil presence from the Green Knight. Nor is the Green Knight in the book or in the original story meant to be a force of evil.
No.
That's a choice that's consciously made in the movie.
And also, from what I know of the story, because like I said, I was 13 or 14 or so when the Sir Gawain and the Green Knight was introduced to me, and I didn't read it. I skipped over that.
I went back and I researched it following this movie.
But you get the idea that he is a vague supernatural connection. In this, it's not vague at all. He is a supernatural creature.
Yeah.
And we'll get to why. Without spoilers, Gawain a year goes on, and Gawain is like, you have to do it, and he's like, he's nervous, he's scared. Arthur says you have to meet it because it's like, what's the worst that could happen? It's a game. And so he sets off and into the woods and to go north. I think he says like 4 nights north or something, 6 nights north, and
adventures ensue, mishaps happen, and eventually
lessons are learned and traumas endured. And it also reminded me that, like, oh, right, if you don't have a map in this time, who knows where he's talking about?
Yeah.
Like, that hit me that it's like, this is the wilderness.
When he said 6 days to the north, I'm like, could you be a tad more specific?
Right.
The north is
there's
just
a lot of
direction.
northeast, northwest.
Yeah.
Because that ends up playing into the story when he runs across a vagrant and a gang of thieves and different stories that are told, and those are probably some of my favorite moments.
Yeah, there are things that are added to his story, and there are things that are from the original book that are also there.
And I feel like once we get the main thrust of it, which is the house that he finds, is the center point of the morality of the story, and I feel like this is where they take a lot of liberties with it. Well, I say let's just talk about it. Let's get into it.
Yeah. I'll talk about,
because we also know now that, that speaking of his mother Morgana, she created. There seems to be this greater conspiracy that's at hand, and who's involved in it. Well, it happens. We see her summon the Green Knight or create him, right?
And then nothing comes of that, and I'm like, what does that mean? So she's trying to kill Arthur, or because in the original story, she creates the Green Knight as a way of frightening Guinevere,
right, to death. Yeah,
and
but that's not present in this at all.
No,
it's all a test for Gawain.
Yeah,
Garwin, and you almost get a feeling that, at least I had very fleetingly, that Arthur might be in on it because he seems pretty nonplussed about the whole thing. Then again, he's Arthur Pendragon. He's been around for a long time and he's seen some pretty weird shit. If you're to believe that his canon exists in the world of this film as well,
I would argue that's irrelevant.
That's irrelevant because also the Arthurian part of it is also fairly irrelevant. It's mostly this story of a young man, and I think. Thematically, we'll get to talking about like what I really like about this movie from a theme point of view.
There's a part later where a woman, like a ghost, tells him,
Winifred,
like, I know who the Green Knight is, and nothing is revealed.
Winifred,
like,
Winifred is a famous character in Christendom at that time. She was a virgin who it was Welsh originally. She was a virgin martyr who was attacked by a noble person, and instead of giving away her virginity and giving away her virtue, she chose death. And so they kind of incorporate that story into it as this interesting little ghost story turnaround that feels like it might not go anywhere, and it doesn't really. It's very episodic. There are definitely things that don't go anywhere, but they're just very similar to poems of that time. We went in there, and then the thing happened.
Yeah.
The nexteth day, we continue on the way. You know, it's that thing.
Yeah, and like
narratives are very different.
There's a weird, creepy part where she just kind of hovers towards him.
That's when you know she's a ghost.
Yeah, and I was like, this movie, for all of its A24-ness, is not really scary.
Yeah, I remember when we first talked about it, we were like, "Oh, this is going to be like medieval like horror. Like this is going to feel more like that."
The first trailer, we
was
were
more
like, this is
spooky.
going to be like a horror, like an unknown Lovecrafty horror fantasy. Second
more of
trailer
like
was
a
like an
heartfelt-
actual trailer of
Yeah.
like an epic odyssey, and then the end result is like neither of
those.
Well,
It
I
is-
mean, I don't want to say that. The tale with Winifred, like all these stories are like these Herculean labors that he has to go through.
And they are mundane in their distribution
Yeah.
of storytelling, but that kind of makes sense because they're also given the right tone. You know, he goes into a spooky haunted house and finds a ghost there and retrieves her head, and you know, and it feels very. I find it interesting. You can buy a Green Knight licensed role playing game. Have you seen this?
Yes.
And so I have to imagine Lowery was thinking about Dungeons and Dragons. He was thinking about quests. I think he has mentioned it before. Now I can't cite that, but I,
I
feel
wish
like
he
that,
would think of a more interesting quest.
well, that comes to the question about like why this story. I think I have an answer. I don't have an answer. I have an answer for me.
Yeah.
Why this story?
I want to get to I'm kicking it a little bit. I want to get to one of my favorite parts of the movie. It's so good, and you probably will be like, "Really, this is your favorite part?" But I think that it is actually, because it's the thing that made me feel the most in my heart. Because that's what I always say, like the big thing that I look for in a movie. Like if a movie doesn't have a heart, it's just kind of nothing.
Yeah.
There's a scene, and it's on Christmas Day when Gawain walks into the Knights of the Round Table or whatever. And King Arthur stands up. I'm just going to go through the whole scene because it's all great to me. King Arthur stands up and goes, "Where is your mother?" And she goes, "She's not here. She's not feeling well." I was like, "Well, then come sit beside me in her place or whatever." And she comes over there, or he comes over there rather. And King Arthur says, "I look around this table at all these men that I know and all of them who would give their life for me or whatever, living in great nobility. And it is with sadness or something that I say, I do not know thee." And he asks him, I can't remember the order all this stuff happens in, but he goes, "I know nothing of you," or whatever. And he says, and I say that not with reproach, but with regret, that I did not take more time to know you when you were a little boy, or whatever. And he goes, "So tell me a tale that I might know of thee." And there's this really great moment. The music's very somber and very kind of quiet. Music being quiet. But
The
Dev
atmosphere.
Patel looks down. It's very somber and heartfelt. He looks down and he tries to think of something he has to say for himself. And then he looks up and he looks back down again and he says, "I have no tale to tell." And I really felt in that moment that he feels unworthy of his position.
It's like I was trying to say, the camera looks around at these other men who you have to assume are people like Lancelot or
Urians and Percival and Galahad.
and they are men of great legend.
Yeah.
And he's like, I'm just
I
a
don't have
kid who literally came in here still stinking of a whorehouse because my lover is a prostitute and my life is I'm a drunk. Yeah. Like, because we see these parts where he's getting into fights with people. Like he's a real kind of jockey, like burnout a little bit.
I would say
it's not a burnout.
I like the word
but,
like wayward.
Yeah, he's wayward. Yeah, because he's still young. I don't know how old Dev Patel is. He's in mid-30s, I guess, or
Probably.
so. Hopefully he's not. He's got to be older than me. So he's got to be older than us.
Why? Because if he's younger than you,
I'm gonna freak out.
you're gonna freak out.
Well, he was like.
He's got to be like at least in his mid-30s.
Yeah,
sure.
yeah.
Because he was doing like Slumdog Millionaire 10 years ago.
Yeah, and I was like, he's older than me now. Yeah. That's also something talking about when we're talking about Dune. Okay, he is younger than us. He's 31.
Oh, so he's
a year
older than me.
Yeah, he's a year younger than me.
Yeah.
Oh well,
it's all right.
That's all right.
You're gonna get a movie deal tomorrow.
Good for him. I think a lot of people also have looked at this movie very similar to like the Timothée Chalamet effect of like all these, because there are a lot of teenage girls who are looking at Dune just like, ooh, Timothée Chalamet. There's a lot of people who saw
they're in for a rude awakening.
That happened a lot with a lot of people who are like, ooh, Dev Patel, because he's hot in this movie.
Yeah,
Like,
that comes up in every review, how sexy Dev Patel is.
Yeah.
I'm not saying he looks pretty good for this movie. I'm just saying, like,
I think they're really trying to push it because everyone wants to make Dev Patel happen, and they've been wanting to make him happen for a while, and this is like a big role for him.
But I feel like a lot of those reviews, like, the Dev Patel's so sexy in this movie. You would imagine him to be doing all these sexy things.
He's not.
He's walking around, falling down in mud.
He's not
and
sexy.
Shrooms,
He gets really
like,
pathetic. He's kind of a sad sack in it.
a little bit.
But he's pretty man. He's a good actor. Like he has these great moments of physical frustration and great moments with this character. I like having him as our lead, because I know because like, even though that character could really be anybody, he brings something to it. He brings a vulnerability to it that makes sense, and he brings a youthfulness compared to these other men.
That's why I think that, like, that scene with him and Arthur, there's two of them actually.
Because there's also the scene where Guinevere says, "Yet you have not a story yet."
Yeah.
So don't count yourself out, and this will come back to one of my themes about this movie.
But imagine if you took this scene out, or imagine if he just came by to sit by King Arthur, and then none of that stuff happens. I think the movie is drastically weaker.
Yeah, because
like, that's the scene where I felt
you
like,
lose the thrust of the story.
I know who this young man is now.
Right.
He's this wayward man who wants to be worthy of greatness. Is the word that I keep coming back to, is greatness. In fact, there's a line later where King Arthur is talking to him again. And he's like, nearly a year gone, and he goes like, you'll have to seek him out. And he goes like, were it not just a game? And he goes, maybe. And he goes, but is it? And there's a line they talked a little bit, and then the end the thing that he ends with is it wrong to want greatness for you?
Yeah,
like
and that's a really great moment.
Yeah,
because that kind of encouraged it. It is.
I gave the movie like 2 extra points that I took away later. I gave them extra points for how, like, legitimately moving those scenes are with Arthur, because, like, Gawain wants to belong to something the way these knights belong to the Round Table. I'd also like to point out that when the Green Knight comes in and, like, threatens their king, they all just stand there.
Well, they pull swords out, though.
I'm just saying, if a giant green man came in and threatened my king, and, like, there's other magical elements that have happened.
We didn't threaten him. He did come in with the holly leaf, and he waited to be accepted into the court. He handed a letter. He didn't come in.
Yeah, because Arthur gives him the old.
There's a lot of pomp and circumstance to these things. I feel like
possesses her mind.
Right.
I know this is like the problem with, like, the cerebralness of the movie. What is happening versus what is not happening.
Right.
What is artistic license versus what really, like, did the fox really talk to him? Like, are the giants really real? When he goes down and gets Winifred's head, I'm getting into spoilers now, obviously. When he gets Winifred's head, a bunch of red lights and cerebral camera work is happening. I think that's what I'm talking about with, like, certain ways in which this movie is presented, like the visual nature of it. It's that very, is this really happening, or is this just kind of the director trying to find a cool, trippy way to show you what's happening?
Well, I think it's
like, if the Green Knight just shows up and reads the letter, it's less interesting than, like, oh, she reads the letter.
Right. Again, it's the mundanity of the Christian world that eschews all magic but God the Father. There is no other magic. There is nothing. It is all done by the invisible hand of the God and of the holiness that presented through Christ, which
versus all the magic that's pagan and unknown.
Right, which is so natural, which is so ever present. And so as Gawain goes further away from the Christian world of his king and his God, it is a world of magic that is leaving us. It recalls to me...
that's a cool way to look at it.
It recalls to me one of my favorite moments in Neil Gaiman's Sandman. And it is one of my favorite chapters in Sandman where Dream...
I know who Dream is.
Right. Where Morpheus goes to talk to William Shakespeare. And William Shakespeare is working on Midsummer's Night Dream. And so
is he like, you should add a man turning into a donkey or whatever?
It's similar to that, but what it is he's been commissioned to write this story. And I don't think Shakespeare knows about it, but he's been commissioned to write the story by Oberon and Titania.
Yeah.
And there's a whole bunch of stuff revolving around Shakespeare's son. There's tragedy. Puck is running around, and Puck's real, of course. And then they put the production together, and they do A Midsummer's Night Dream, and the only audience is the Fae people, is Oberon and all them.
That's cool.
And I think Dream asked them, like, why do all this? Why set this up for this man and everything? It's just like, because we're going to leave this world soon. There's no place left for us here in the mortal world. It's becoming too crowded. It's becoming too demystified.
So we wanted to immortalize ourselves in this play.
We wanted to give you something to remember us by before we leave this realm.
Oh, well, that's precious.
And it also, so that's what that kind of reminds me of, is as you leave, this is a story you see a lot, I think, is you see it in something like The Hobbit. You leave the comfort of your home, and the adventures that you find out there are sometimes beyond your understanding. And this is not a story where Lowery or the characters are telling you what's going on. You accept the fantastic as
There's
it
also
is.
the part where
it's
he
confident in its fantasticness.
He does take mushrooms and trip balls.
Yeah.
So then I'm wondering, like, is all the stuff that he's experiencing just like leftovers of psychedelia?
Maybe
like,
there's a raw connection between psychedelia and the world we knew back then. The stoned ape theory. I watched this documentary on Netflix about mushrooms recently. Filled me with hope. Mushrooms are great. I love them. It's a great documentary. It's actually nice and feel good compared to the disaster of the world we're in right now. And it talks about like how that's something that's been in human culture for the longest time, and it's probably inspired a lot of these things that for us were just like, well, I don't think there were giants. I haven't found any. Yeah. What they thought were dragons were like dinosaurs. I guess like that.
I guess what it feels like is a director who doesn't want to commit to anything.
I think it's a little different. I think he's confident, but I think Lowery's very confident in the vision that he has, but it's not a vision that it's all tell. It's all show, but it's not tell. Yeah. And again, I think the problem is that the story of Sir Gawain and the Green Knight is just not common in our pop culture. Unlike Beowulf, unlike Arthur, unlike other stories in the Western canon, for being one of the first foundational texts of the Western canon, where, it's been translated. Tolkien did a run at it and everything. Probably the most famous is Tolkien. Helped inspire so many things. So it doesn't hold a place in our culture. So this is very foreign to a lot of people. A lot of people don't know about the story of Sir Gawain and the Green Knight.
But he chose to make it into a movie.
Right. And he chose to make it into a movie that doesn't tell about itself, because I feel like he's saying you should know this story. And the problem is we don't know this story.
So what do you think are some of the specifics that you just were like, you didn't really like or care for too much?
Well, it's not, I think, and again, I just haven't seen it a second time. I would say that it is just tonally, it is kind of strange, because it is trying to balance this wild ancient thing with modern. It's very modern though at the same time. Patel's performance is very modern.
Yeah. Not a lot of old English prose.
No. I do wish I had subtitles at times, because Sean Harris mumbles a lot.
He does a little bit. He's known as the wispy man. He speaks in a wispy like that.
Yeah, that's why he's, again, the biggest thing I know outside of him is playing Solomon Lane in the Mission Impossible movies.
He's the opposite of Ralph Ineson.
Yeah,
who bellows everything.
Everything is articulated to such a point. So there's all these different quests. We need to probably get to the big one, which is the Lord and the Lady.
Yeah.
Which after he of course in a way that kind of shows a desperation, because I think this shows that this is not the quest you think it is he gets robbed by these group of
thugs.
Yeah, these group of thugs, and they steal from him everything. They leave him to die. They steal his horse and his axe, and he has a moment where I believe he imagines what himself will be like as just a corpse.
Yeah,
like he's
a couple of moments like that.
Yeah,
keep going.
Where you see there's one point where you definitely see the alternative of time.
Yeah.
And but he gets himself out of it, but he's lost everything. His quest is already fucked from the beginning, and he has, and it shows like it is very different from, I think, a lot of the gamifying of quests that we're used to growing up with like Legend of Zelda and things like that.
The quest aspects.
The quest is not rewarding.
They're much more. Well, they're rewarding in the sense that he learned something about them, or at least we'd like to think that. They're more akin to something like the Odyssey, whereas a quest is not you go to a place and you get X amount of experience points.
Right.
It's like you run into a Cyclops and he eats all your friends.
Right.
That's the thing that happens.
And that is the ancient way of stories that are told. We don't these days.
It is an
there's
epic in the traditional sense.
Right.
Like,
and
I
that's the
don't
thing is
disagree with
it's
that.
so traditional that it spits
Gets
in the
boring
face
sometimes.
of Again, I think that's kind of the thing is like its tone is so fitting to the stories of the era that we have. It's interesting because Tolkien, I think, took fantasy and made it into something that felt big and biblical and like where there are great achievements and battles and
maybe
creatures.
there's a difference between epics and myth.
Yes.
Whereas what we love is, as a society, I think that's why we love superheroes more than we love. That fan is broken. As
Oh, okay.
Sorry. You can leave the door open if you want.
Probably need to.
But maybe we enjoy myth more than we enjoy a tried and tested epic in the traditional sense. To
Right.
use that.
The heroic.
Because superheroes are just myth too.
Right.
Yeah. So for me personally, I guess maybe I think I didn't find the movie to be totally boring, but like I can understand why someone would watch this and be like, I was expecting something a little more grand, and what you get is not that.
Well, so the final two parts is the Lord and the Lady, Joel Edgerton, not that, and I think this got lost with me because it came as a shock to the audience. Is that he says you could have whatever you want here, but I need something back that the house gives you.
Yeah, so I picked up on that.
Yeah, I picked up on that, but what it leads to is very interesting. So all the while he's trying to hold on to his virtue. He's trying to hold on, to his virtue and everything. Also, when he
which kind of the opposite
with the
of what
girl
happens in the book.
with when he saves the girl's head, he gets his axe back magically.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah, he gets a magic gift for that. And so he ends up at the house. He's already been walked with the giants. The foxes run off. As you do, you walk with the giants.
I see the fox is like the final temptation.
Yeah, because there's something. So he's fighting off the temptation of the lady, who is also played by the very same actress as his lover from back home.
Yes.
It's also Alicia Vikander.
I know. At first, I wasn't sure when I first saw it. I was like, is that? Then I looked up in the cast, or whatever. Like, it is.
And I was like, that's pretty interesting. As he's staying there, he's given everything he needs. He says, "Oh yeah, the cathedral is only like a night away. Just stay as long as you need to." And you could definitely feel the presence of like, you don't need to stay here. This is a temptation.
Also, there's a creepy lady with a blindfold.
There's a creepy lady.
The text is his mother. It's supposed to be his mother in disguise.
Right.
Here, it's just
an old lady.
Dressed. Like, well, but it's not just an old lady
Right.
because it's clearly from the text. But he doesn't take the meaning that he takes from the text, which just confuses me. It's like, well, if you're not going to do anything with it, and she's just there to kind of be creepy, then why include it?
It kind of is like when you adhere so much to the text, you get things that if you don't explain them with narration, it's like, oh, okay, it's just window dressing. There is a point where this tension sort of is building between these. And it's where they have the discussion about like, why do you do the things you do? And it's like, I honor, that's what a knight does. And they talk about green and red.
He asks him, what do you hope to gain at the end of all this? He says honor. I like that too.
Yeah. And I like the discussion about like, I think he's like, what do you think about this Green Knight? I think he's not from this earth. And she's like, oh, I think he's most definitely from this earth.
But she says like, well, green is the color of earth. And he goes, and also of rot. Or something, and then they talk about like the color green versus the color red, and red is the color of blood and of like courage as well as, whereas green is seen as a color of cowardice in a lot of ways.
Yeah,
Willow
or yellow or something like that.
Yeah, but
he, I think the scene that shocked me the most, I think what shocked a lot of people is
before you get to that.
Yes.
So I know. So in the book, I want to talk about what happens at the near the end of this thing is like the hunter keeps offering him. I call him the hunter. Joel Edgerton's character keeps offering him these gifts and says, "I'll give to you, but you must give to me whatever you take from this house." He doesn't understand it because he doesn't take anything from the house. In the story, what happens is like, and it's sort of like subverted in the movie a little bit. They kind of reverse it. It's still the same thing, but essentially, but like the woman keeps trying to seduce him or whatever in the book, and he is saying no out of a chivalric sense of duty, whereas here it feels like in the movie it feels like he's trying to preserve himself out of a sense of like
moral standing.
Yeah, more like safety.
Yeah,
he feels scared of her in a weird way, and at the end in the book she does kiss him. And so at the end, the knight kisses him because you owe me the kiss because you took it from the house.
Well, I think that happens 3 times. Like, it's 3 kisses.
Yeah, or something like that.
And so that's something that's missing, which creates a completely different vibe that is homoerotic.
Yeah.
That's not present in the original because it's just... that concept really didn't exist in the same way it does now.
No, you kissed, so I get the kiss.
The moment that him and Joel Edgerton kiss, and it feels very put upon and very flirtatious by Edgerton's character, it comes as a shock.
I felt more like not threatening, but I felt it felt more
it was domineering.
Domineering.
It is very domineering because he doesn't want this, and this powerful man is pressing this on this younger man.
Yeah.
We
should talk about the big difference is she doesn't kiss him. Instead, they have sex.
No,
or do they?
She masturbates.
Gives him a hand job.
Yeah, and that's because he says, you know, he's been pent up this whole time in variety of ways, and it comes to
we forgot about the green sash.
Yes.
So his mother gives him a green sash. This is another separation from the story.
Yes,
in the story,
very different.
They get the sash at the house, whereas here, his mom makes the sash for him and says it will keep him protected from all harm.
Right.
Essentially.
And so he's had the sash on. The sash sort of represents...
And then he loses it but when he's robbed.
Right.
And then they go to the house, and she gives him the hand job and offers him this sash back.
Right. And so he has the sash on, and the sash is like, again, it's sort of like, this will protect you from death. This will protect you from danger. And he gives in to his lust. He gives in to this sort of failure of morality to be, which is funny because, you know, it feels like this journey is him trying to reclaim the virginal like hero when he most certainly wasn't that. He was hanging out in whorehouses, known for being, you know, a lush and a lech. And in this, he gives in. And what does she say to him after she graphically smears his sash with semen?
Well, she says, "You're no knight.
You're no knight," and it caused him to have a nervous breakdown.
Yeah,
and it's a really intense moment. That's
some weird spice.
You don't see cum in movies very often. I'll just out and out say it. I went on Twitter immediately and was just like, the Green Knight cum. I want to hear how many people are freaking out about this. It made me laugh so much seeing people's reaction to it. But it represents...
Is it mostly just people joking, or are people trying to read a lot of meaning into
No,
it?
I think it's mostly people joking or just like, oh my God, can you believe it? But, you know, there was a review where they talked about it and they said this shows something that I think blood doesn't show enough for characters because all heroes bleed. To see that shows something even more human.
Yeah, his semen.
Yeah, of a man. Like that is that nothing more naked and raw than that.
Also, the lady's watching him as he leaves. The lady with the blindfold or whatever.
Yeah, and it's this kind of
He's naked. He almost leaves the axe. He does let me come back and grab that thing, and then
the music like makes it like he's now has had enough. He's freaking out. He has a complete breakdown. He feels like
we're gonna talk about that music too. Keep going.
He has several moments where he just breaks down, feels like he's failed entirely.
The music makes it feel like it's a horror movie, but it doesn't ever fulfill that promise of anything really scary.
Well, I think the fear is the fear of absolute defeat. absolute abandonment, absolute desecration.
I don't disagree, but the music feels like it's still from a different movie that is meant to be scarier than it is.
Right. After that
I wish
happened,
it was that scary. I wish something really scary happens.
and I don't think it's. Yeah, I think for me, it just was like more of like gut dropping.
Yeah.
And so he goes to the cathedral after this.
Yeah, he leaves. The fox tells him,
Yeah,
you don't need to go this way. You could actually go home.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, anyone who knew what awaits them after this would just go home, is what he says. And then he freaks out on the fox, says, I never wanted your company anyway. Be nice to that fox. It's a nice
the fox
little
has been great. The fox speaks with the voice of his mother, apparently.
Is it?
Yeah.
It felt too whispery.
It might be some kind of like thing with that, but it's supposed to be. I think it's supposed to be his mother.
Yeah. Then he goes to the chapel after that. He sees a big. In fact, it's a nice little piece of symbolism as he sees a Celtic cross, and it's just eaten up by vines.
Yeah.
Pretty nice.
Yeah.
Like that.
Yeah. It's this outcropping of Christianity gets taken back by the pagan world.
And he's there early. He's there a day early or whatever.
Because he's supposed to be there on Christmas Day.
Yeah.
It is hence to the day.
Yeah, and also in the book it's New Year's.
It's New Year's then, because I think Christmas and New Year's were like the same thing at that time or something.
And he leaves the axe on the stairs and just waits. And the Green Knight wakes up.
Green Knight's chilling there.
He goes, my good night. And he goes, is it Christmas? And he goes, yes, it is. And then he shrugs off all the vines. And this is
every time he moves, it's just ground shaking too.
Yeah, it feels like a boat. Yeah. Like on the creaky boat on the sea. It's all right.
Did you read the article about like the Green Knight's like costume?
No, but apparently it's quite extensive, I imagine.
Yeah, they said they wanted it to, like he had to wear contact lenses and
Poor Ralph Ineson.
yeah, and like it was so
He looks great, to be fair. Like, I mean, you could do a lot worse.
It was like really heavy, and like the prosthetics department and stuff had to like rest his head when it got tired because it was really heavy.
Yeah.
Because they didn't want it to be like CGI; they wanted it to be like real.
And it works.
It works.
That design alone, I think people will remember more than anything
And
else.
also, the first time like you see the Green Knight, that was how it was.
For the cast. That's a great
Yeah,
like
and they said
they did that for a couple of movies. Like for It, they didn't let them see Pennywise till like that's
they didn't let them see Bill Skarsgård so that those kids would just be like,
No,
that's awesome.
One thing I really like is, or this is where the trailer fucking lies to you.
Right, because
he goes, shall we complete our game? And he picks up the axe and like, I'm expecting some rousing action to give me a shot in the arm.
And again, this wouldn't be surprising if that story was more in the cultural consciousness, but it's not. So he's gonna get his licks. It reminds me of like if you ever
have to plug it in. It's not hooked up.
Like if you ever got in trouble in school and got paddled. You got to get licks. He's got to get his licks, and he's like, he all he knows is that I cut this man's head off.
Yeah.
Well, it didn't bother him because he's a supernatural entity. I'm a man.
I feel like
I'll die.
I feel like David Lowery, for all of his skill, and there's a lot of skill in this movie. There's good performances and great cinematography.
This is going to be an award thing, too. Like, I feel like this is going to have some award stuff coming up. Also because it's scant film year.
I can feel a lot of people rolling their eyes. I feel like David Lowery, for all of his ability, makes movies that are sometimes inaccessible. I like a lot of them. I like Anthem Bodied Saints. I think it's a great movie. I like A Ghost Story. I don't say I love it. I love Pete's Dragon. It makes me cry. But like this movie feels like I just wish there was like a spoonful of accessibility just tossed in there. Just to give it the right. It's like when you're eating something that's all chocolate. And you need some saltiness or some bitterness to counteract it.
You need some cream or something in there to kind of balance out that.
I just wish that there was a little bit of accessibility to this. This is why I said that Dune trailer looked like pitch perfect. It's got everything you'd want.
I think,
and I'm not. I still think that the movie has value, and I still think that there's a lot of good here.
I think the movie has a place. I feel very open to defend it because it is so.
Me too.
It is so bluntly itself, and I do find that a confidence of Lowery.
Yeah.
But I think he's someone that
that's
it's
why
like
I kind of like it.
That like interviews of him, he's very down to earth and very nerdy and very connected with stuff. But then he does these movies, and it feels like he's like grinning, like
They're
a little
very
bit
arty.
like it's like, yeah, it's my kind of thing.
I mean,
I
look,
made a movie for me.
I always admire ambition, especially like not blind ambition, but like reckless
Blind
ambition or
ambition,
whatever.
yeah.
Like Zack Snyder's Justice League is all ambition. He throws it all at the wall.
I consider it confidence. Like I could tell when a film is made confidently. Like the director was balls to the wall confident.
Yeah,
about
it's too well made to be a bad movie.
It feels like then again, I have to imagine like
But other
COVID
people-
and everything else had difficulty in the process of making it.
But I can imagine other people who aren't you and me. We see a lot of movies together. Like, if you're a person who sees, like, I don't know, 2-3 movies a year at the theater, and this one looked cool to you, this movie, you don't pay attention to, like, oh, that shot's very well composed.
No, you're not thinking
Or,
about
like,
that.
you're not,
If the last movie you saw was like Spiral, the Saw movie, and then like you saw Fast 9, and they're like, oh, let's go see the Green Knight, you're gonna be like, it fucking sucked.
Yeah.
And I'm not just being like an asshole about that. I'm not being smug about it.
Smug. Yeah, like I'm saying I do think a lot of those critiques have value because it's a slow movie. I fell asleep for part of the second time, but I did. I could tell Matt
He
was like
snoring.
Matt wanted to be like. But
I was more just like, oh, Rob,
Yeah.
I hope you can watch it again soon.
I was really
I
under-
didn't know he had seen it for.
I was really under the weather too when I did it. I had a really, really splitting headache. But
So we should.
But here's where the accessibility comes back. The end of the movie.
Right.
And I think the end of the movie is much easier to understand. He has a vision.
We don't know it's a vision.
Yeah.
He cannot handle what's coming, and he runs away.
Yeah, let's talk about that real quick. The knight lifts up the axe, and the first thing he does is he flinches, and he says, "Good sir," and he goes, "Did I flinch when you raised your hand to me?" And he goes, like, "No, you did not." And he goes, "But you're much braver than I am," or whatever. And he goes, "You've had a whole year to find your courage." And he goes, "A year, 100 years, it wouldn't make a difference."
Right.
Whatever.
It's a good little. That's also a really great scene because it's Patel really acting, and Innocent also acting behind all that. Like, are you for real, dude?
Yeah. And also worth pointing out, that is what happens in the story.
Yes, he does flinch once. Yeah. And that's when he gets like the nick on the
neck or the cheek or whatever. Right. And then he raises it for a third time, and he just says, "I can't do this," and he runs away. And the Green Knight just stands there and watches him leave. And then we don't know it at the time, but we get a montage of the rest of his life. And it's a montage. It's pretty clear. The point of it is to clearly show that he lives the rest of his life in shame.
Shame.
Yeah.
It was stolen
And
valor.
cowardice. And
He returns and lies about his quest, and because of what he didn't want, which is his proximity to the king, his nepotism potentially. I want to be a hero despite the fact that I am blood related to Arthur. He still gets the kingdom.
Yeah.
He still gets married. He still has kids, and he leads Camelot, or at least his English reign, into destruction.
Essentially.
Yeah.
Also,
he loses.
he
He becomes
suffers-
a failed a failed war king.
People don't like him.
People don't like him. I guess he just turns into kind of a despot.
I think it's just more that they find him pathetic and weak or something.
He's always heavy because
he slouches when he rides and stuff.
The guilt of it is on him. He
And
loses his son in battle.
He suffers what I would call like moral punishment or
Yeah.
karmic punishment.
It's
He
that
loses-
Christian. It's that Christian thing of like, if you fall short, there will be a punishment to come for you.
and he loses his son.
Right.
And also he there's a thing with he has sex with Ethel, and as the camera pans out, which is where I think everyone's like, Dev Patel's so sexy. He's just giving it to this lady.
He's having
but
sad
he's got
sex.
this he's got the sash on because he won't take it off.
Right.
Because he's afraid. Or whatever.
And we know we see that because at the end he's being sieged upon. His family is dead.
His mother just leaves him.
The mother just
the mother who
leaves,
summoned
everyone
the Green
leaves
Knight.
him.
Yeah.
Everyone leaves him. He's a failed king, and the doors are barely holding on. And
before they blast open, he takes the sash off.
Right, and it's almost like he's removing his guts a little bit because it just
Yeah.
keeps coming, and his head falls off.
Yeah. And then he comes to and he's back in the Green Chapel.
Right.
And this is where I think the movie subverts itself maybe too much. Is he goes, the Green Knight lifts the axe up again and he goes, "Wait." and he unties the sash and he takes it off. So he faces his fear as a man, essentially, as the best version of a Christian man would of the time.
He says, I can't face this task with the expectation of others. I have to do it with the expectation of myself.
Yeah.
And that's where the Green Knight's kind of like, okay. And he does that last little bit.
He wants to be worthy.
Right. And he comes down and he says, off with your head.
Well, he says,
first says,
my sweet knight.
Yeah, he's like,
and he goes, good.
Congratulations. Like he's like, you did the right thing. And he kind of playfully is just like, off with your head.
But here's your thing. The movie then it ends.
It ends.
Except if you stay all the way through to the credits, you see a little child playing with his crown at the end.
Oh, the crown looks dope as hell, by the way.
Yeah, it's cool.
Yeah, it's got the big sun thing on it.
Yeah, at the end, it's
Lowry himself said, "I really wanted to keep that crown."
Why didn't he? He's the director.
I think it's like a lot of stuff ends up back in like storage and stuff like that.
Lie to them. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Ben Affleck stole batarangs and put them in his thing. Like, I would steal it. But at the end, it's like it shows you all the music or whatever and the songs or whoever by this person and edited in Premiere Pro. And then you see a little girl in like old English garb playing with the crown. Maybe that could be implied as his daughter. But do you think he lives? I think if he doesn't live, the movie is pointless.
He lives.
You think he lives?
I think it is I think very similar to the nick on the cheek as like it's playful. It's teasing.
We should talk about what happens in the original
in the original story.
He gives him the nick and he reveals himself to be an agent of Morgana.
He's the man. He's the man from the mansion.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, he's Joel Edgerton's. What would have been Joel Edgerton's character. And he says, "I'm here from Morgana, your mother, to make Queen Guinevere afraid."
Right.
So that's basically
there's a whole other plot.
Yeah, and then he chastises him for wearing the sash, and then he sends him back to Camelot, where he tells everybody what really happened and that he didn't face him honorably, and they all forgive him and they all wear a sash around their waist to remind themselves to be honorable and to be honest.
Right.
And that's what ends.
That's how the moral ends in that story, and I think probably the biggest thing Lowery does in this is says that is a morality of hundreds of years ago.
Yeah.
We young people now have, because if there's one thing I really like about this movie, and it is something that's rare, especially for our generation, for us millennials, is it is a movie that is very warm about the older generation to the younger generation. Like you said, that scene where Arthur says like what he talks to him and says like what's so wrong about having wanting greatness for you.
Yeah.
And I think we're a jaded millennial society that's just like, fuck the boomers and what they've done with us. They ran away with all the money and they tell us we're lazy.
I think,
and this is very different. This is a different story than that, where it's like, no, we want greatness for you. And I feel like as I was watching it, the one thing that ran through my head was, is this a movie that in an English class, years from now, that a teacher can show and it makes sense? Some of it.
Yeah, some of it.
Not all of it.
I don't know about the semen part.
Right, yeah, because I did not realize it was an R-rated movie. Like, I didn't realize that.
Well, aside from the gore, which is just like he just cuts his head off.
Right, and he's a creature.
Yeah.
Aragorn's cutting orc heads off like it's nobody's business.
Yeah, but it's not a big close-up.
Right,
but
that's true.
Yeah, but like aside from that,
maybe I'm just too used to decapitations.
Aside from that, and maybe like there's like the sex scene at the end, it's pretty cut
it's very
and dry.
Tame.
Yeah,
because there's not a lot of battles.
And my biggest criticism is I think there should have, like, if this was made by Ridley Scott, because we just talked about the last Duel trailer, which looks dope. I think that he would have put like a fight scene in there.
Yeah, I think it would be way less mystical. This is a very mystical.
I would hope not, because I don't mind.
I don't mind
all
the because I love magic. That Christianity meets paganism, and it's like this is a world that is untamed. It's wild.
If Ridley Scott,
the Feywild.
Yeah, if Ridley Scott would have made it when the thugs attack him, it would have been like 10 thugs, and he would have killed like 5 of them and then lost.
Yeah,
which I think should have happened, because that's around the time you start getting a little like,
yeah,
relax.
Because also like a lot of those little plot lines don't come back. I mean, we do see that guy one more time when he's coming back, but it's a dream.
Yeah, just kill that dude.
Yeah.
Like,
fuck you,
murderer.
I think that a nice little lesson to take from the movie is, and I haven't fully. I need to watch it again to sort of to really come up with something for that, because it changes on you. I remember thinking like this is a really good story about for young people about finding yourself without having the pressure of being like I have to, it's about your journey.
Yeah, because he can run away if he wants to. I don't feel like the Green Knight would hunt him down.
Because there's no forces around Gawain that are like shaming him. All the shame and the guilt is internalized into him, and it's the biggest fear he has is to return. I think he's somebody who would rather return without his head than with his head in shame.
Yeah, that's why I think that was like that montage at the end is like my second favorite part of the movie. My first favorite part is still the talks he has with Arthur because they ground it in a nice emotionality.
And it gives you the story. It tells like why is this important to him.
So the Green Knight, critics love it. Of course they do. Critics love movies like this.
Yes,
it doesn't.
It's an art house kind of.
It doesn't help the argument that critics are out of touch bourgeois, and that the proletariat movies are shit on by them. But for what it's worth, I've seen worse movies, and I appreciate its ambition. I think it's just not my speed.
How would you say of Lowery's work at your lowest?
Maybe. Or at least it's like middling to low. I have a high opinion of his work in general, but like I just think it's not my speed.
Yeah.
I think it's like if you love like there's a lot of different kinds of metal bands. I love bands like Fit for a King or something. But if someone played me a band like I don't know, Manowar or Dream Theater, I would be like, it's all right. It's just not quite like I know enough about it to see the good stuff in there.
And that's a little more like my kind of thing.
Yeah.
Like I'm like, yeah, I'll take some Nordic death metal and I'll take some.
Oh, I love me some Nordic death metal.
And some
I just
like
can't sit through a
symphonic
15-minute long Dream Theater song.
This is not Dream Theater.
No.
This is not a Dream Theater movie.
Probably
this is a Sun-O. This is like a this is
Celtic
like
Frost or whatever.
Yeah, this is a droning kind of
If anything, this is like dark ambient by one of those
this is
black
dark
metal
ambient.
dudes after they went to jail.
Yeah,
they made
this is dark
prison.
ambient. If this was if every sword and shield
Which
movie,
is ironic because the music feels very dark ambient.
Well, it's very shoegazy as well. But I do like this movie. I appreciate what it is. I do need to see it again. I've heard a lot of people say second time around, like, but it's a different kind of thing. But yeah, I everyone I've talked to so far about it, I say,
yeah. Here's the real
go
question.
in with no
Recommending
expectations.
it is the
yeah.
real trick.
I don't know if I would.
I would recommend it under the thing is like it's an epic in the clinical sense of the word.
Right. It is.
It is a man on a journey. It's not an epic like The Lord of the Rings is an epic. Those are epic myths.
Yeah.
I would
this
say
is
a literal epic.
I
Which
would
is a man
say
goes to a place, experiences horrendous violence usually, and then has to keep going.
I would say keep in your mind almost like a modern drama. Because it is about trials that are very modern feeling, but visually presented in a classical epic way.
Sure, yeah. It's a gorgeous movie to look at.
It's a gorgeous movie. Camera work is amazing. There's a more optimized version of this than when we saw in theaters because it's very dark.
Oh, yeah?
It's very dark.
Yeah,
it's
a little bit.
It's
a little dull looking.
I think this actually would play better on your TV. Where all the color is optimized.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah,
I think it's just more like I really like there's like lots of shots like there's like that kind of existentially. It's like something like reminds me of a movie like The Revenant or something where the camera pans up, you see those big overheads of the trees.
Yeah,
where like you really feel isolated and alone. That's where I feel like the movie is like I say it's too competently made to be bad. It's just too ambitiously itself for me to love it.
That's fair.
It's kind of like that.
I think that's fair.
All right.
Yeah.
Let's wrap up here and then just talk Suicide Squad.
I think that's fair.
This has been
the movie
movie date.
The Green Knight. It's certainly worth watching. It's certainly something to check out to see how the temperature of it. Does it make you green? Does it make you red?
If I recommend it, it's not because I think you will necessarily like it. I don't know if you will.
I think it's a worthy experience to deal.
That's a good way to look at it. You should, if you want to, if it looks intriguing to you, watch it once and see how you feel. Yeah. But I won't necessarily recommend you should buy it on Blu-ray.
I think you're right. It's different people's speed. And this has been this of the movie date. with Rob and Matt. This is a podcast for people who love talking about movies but don't want to be too smug about it.
Were we smug about it? I think we slid in pretty good.
I think we did pretty good. We landed pretty well. You could be the judge by listening and watching some of our older.
I have read some comically bad good reviews of this movie, like that are just like, no, you didn't see this movie, or you did, but like you were just looking at Dev Patel's abs or something. You didn't watch.
You were
this
just
movie.
looking at that pretty man's hair.
Yeah, he's got gray hair.
He's got great hair.
Wonderfully shaggy hair.
If you want to see how not smug we are, check us out on iTunes. Check us out on the Podbean app. Check us out on YouTube, where we upload stuff pretty quick, get it out there. Check us out on Facebook.
If you're listening to this now, our Gundam episode should probably be out.
That's a little gift to me.
Yeah, it is.
That's a little gift to me. We talked about Hathaway.
I kicked Char's counterattack pretty hard. It's good fun.
And come check us out on those, please. Like, subscribe, review us.
Send us money in the mail.
Yeah, we don't have a financial presence. Who knows? One day. We just love doing this, and we have fans. I promise you, we have fans. I have friends who have shared us.
Oh yeah,
we have fans out there.
I just put out our BVS episode is above almost 80,000 views now.
Yep, we're getting out there. I'm gonna post the Gundam episode to a couple of Gundam forums.
Great.
Great.
Let me know what they say afterwards. I want to know. If someone, this is stupid. This guy doesn't get it.
Any attention is mostly good from the internet.
Sure,
I don't know.
yeah,
You don't want bad
I'm fine
attention
with it.
from the internet. Well, thank you guys so much.
Yeah.
Take it easy.
Bye-bye.